like the perspective.
Say hi, Holden.
Hi, Holden.
Welcome back to another episode of the Perspectives Podcast.
It's Littyyy.
Podcast.
It's Littyyy.
Podcast. Podcast.
It's Littyyy.
Say hi, Holden.
Hi, Holden.
Welcome. Say hi, Holden. Salutations, everybody.
Holden.
Welcome.
Perspective.
Say hi, Holden.
Hi, Holden.
It's Littyyy.
Podcast.
You guys, and it's good if I look at you while you're talking to me.
I mean, that's
Or should I-
we were just talking about that with the last. I didn't get to finish what my thoughts on it, but like it's one of those things where like if you had talked to Barbara Walters, she might have like some old news thing. Nowadays, everything's so informal. I feel like I don't like looking at the camera too much. Like every once in a while, I engage with our camera,
Right.
but like really for the most
Primarily-
part, I'm talking with you.
Yeah.
and
All right,
that's
so
where
I'll look at
that's
you
where my
primarily.
focus is. You know what I mean?
It's kinda like
yeah,
that.
but it's up to you. Like. Salutations, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with another episode of the Perspectives Podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Littyyy Bro Flacko. This is Holden Stephan Roy. Say hi, Holden.
Hi, Holden.
Right. And today we're back with another episode with a special guest, a New York City hip-hop veteran, a comic book aficionado, a lowlife, clearly and evidently, and is it Queens? Your whole life?
No. So I grew up in Manhattan. I grew up on the Upper West Side of
Okay.
Manhattan, a little bit in West Harlem. And I went to college upstate, and then I went
So instead, we would say a New York legend, a
New
New
York-
York
yeah.
City legend.
New
for the
York
most
City,
part.
yeah.
Right. Double A.B.
Well, hold on. We got an applause
We
button.
got applause. We got sound effects. We finally got sound effects.
Finally.
So, pretty much the way that we start every show is like giving the guests like a little bit of our like history, our back, right? So like, I've been rapping and battling New York City for over 20 years now. You know what I mean? And doing my thing. I was doing my group thing with Jess James Figueroa
Okay.
and Paulie Hustle, the
that's
Littyyy
wrong.
Bros.
Yeah.
And we were doing our Littyyy Bros Volume 1. We did the album, and Holden, our engineer, shouts to Merker Miyagi from Merker Studios up in Montreal. He's the homie, and I told Jess when we did that album, I was like, yo, you know Jess clearly, right? As soon as I said the name, I heard the reaction. Jess, I call him the cheat code, right? Because he can rap, produce, engineer, graphic design, video editing, like he does everything, right?
Mhm.
But when we were doing that project, I told him, I was like, yo, bro, I don't want you doing anything but rapping. I want you to focus completely on rapping.
Right.
And then when we were doing that, I then had to get the project engineered, got it engineered by Merker Miyagi up in Montreal. He's friends with Merker. He saw that Merker doesn't ever really promote anybody's shit or nobody, you know what I mean? He don't promote nobody's music. He don't promote nobody I tell people that he might as well be from New York because he got that New York engineer attitude of like, if I promote one of you motherfuckers, then I gotta promote all you motherfuckers trash. You know what I mean? Now, I'm just getting paid to like record you. I'm not co-signing your recordings. But he promoted our joint, and then Holden saw it. He checked out the videos. He was like, wow, this is pretty entertaining. I like to say that that's what he was thinking. And then he did an album review on the project, and it was like the most thorough album review I've ever seen. Then we sat down for an interview, and when I did that interview, bro, I felt like I went to therapy. Because like I feel like all these years doing so many interviews, and I was like, yo, I've never talked about my fucking childhood. You know, like you talk about, you're a rapper, so it's like they don't talk about rap things. Talk about these rap things that, you know what I mean? But it's also like, yo, I had a life before I was ever a rapper. You know what I mean? And there's all sorts of cool things that happened in my life before
that led you to rap. There was things.
Exactly. So like having that interview, I was like, yo, you know what? We should do something together. And let me bring my friends to the table. And then now it's starting to bleed into like friends of friends. You know what I mean? And it's been a 2-year journey. We started out on Zoom, but now we're doing in-person interviews. You know what I mean?
Congrats. Sounds like a dope.
Episode 75 now.
Episode 75.
75. That's a good number. You know
Good
what I
number.
mean? Yeah,
Good number.
yeah.
Good number.
I'm glad to jump in with you guys
Word.
here. It's a
Nah, we're
pleasure,
happy
man.
to have you.
Yeah.
Super happy.
So with that in mind, we jump in and we start early, right? Let's start with the cold hard facts. What's your name? What are you known as? Where are you from? And then where are your parents from?
Okay. My name is Double A.B. I'm known as a MC, writer, and artist, and visual artist as well. And I'm from New York City, Upper West Side originally. Been in Queens though, like damn near 20 years. So I'm like a
Half.
half. I'm an adoptive Queens
I
guy
would say,
now,
I would say at this point you're official queen.
Yeah. And I fell
My
in
wife
love.
has been living in. She's from Brooklyn, born and raised, but she's been living in the Bronx with me for 18 years now.
Right.
So now I'm like, nah, you from the Bronx.
You
now.
officially
you official
Bronx.
X.
Right,
you
right,
officially X.
right.
We've stolen you from Brooklyn.
Right. And sometimes you identify or you just become part of your neighborhood. So that's what happened to me in Astoria here. And yeah, my parents, my mom is from Michigan. My pops is he grew up all over, but he was mostly Albany, New York.
Wow.
They both were New Yorkers at heart though, and that same thing. They both, as soon as they became of age, came to New York immediately and stayed here forever, you know.
And then they met clearly.
And
out
then
here.
they met on my old block where I grew up on 90th Street. That's where they met, just on the
Nice.
street through a mutual friend. Oh, who's that? You know,
Right.
introduced them. You know, they're not together anymore, but they were together like 20 years. So yeah, and that was basically, you know, they were New Yorkers. They came to New York, and I also had my great aunt and uncle who were my on my father's side, my grandmother's older sister and her husband, who lived in West Harlem, Morningside Heights, and they were my like second parents, and that I would go and stay with them on the weekends. Ever since I was, you know, a tiny kid, my parents would give me away for the weekend and watch them, you know. So they were kind of like even more my role models, and my, you know, and my great aunt was like super cool. She lived to be 100 and smoked trees with me to the last day almost.
Damn,
and so
you smoking cheese with a 90-year-old?
Oh yeah, 90 plus, 99-year-old. So yeah, so we were, you know, very tight, and my uncle was you know, super legendary dude too, boxer, you know, street knockout artist, and you know, the old ladies would get their purse stolen in the complex. He'll go out and get the purse. You know, the purse will just show back up in the lobby, or a dude will come with a black eye and an apology note. You know, he was that dude.
Right.
So, you know, that was my aunt and uncle, and they were like, you know, super cool. And so I was either there on 123rd Street and Broadway, or I was at my mom's at 90th, and that was the kind of like birth of you know, that was my young life. That's the world I was running.
Those are super close areas though.
Yeah,
like
very close, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like that's like there's always a debate amongst us uptown people about like, where does Harlem start really? Right. Like there's technical, actual
on the
what
east
the city
side
say,
it starts like,
but then then like you leave it up to the residents of the city, and it's like, nah, it leaks over one more block or two more blocks. You know,
it's both at the same time. You know, it's like you know, it like the sort of technical block of my aunt's block. A lot of people call it Morningside Heights, right? Because 125th Street is the line. Right. But if you're gonna walk one block to the train, it's literally one long block away. So it's like that side is Harlem, but you could call that area Harlem as well. Because like somebody from out of New York, people don't even know. Even in New York, Morningside Heights is like a baby. It's like not even a neighborhood. It's not. It's between Upper West and Harlem. It's like Upper West light, Harlem light. You know, so it's like people know the Upper West, people know Harlem. Those are the ones people know. So I would usually describe it as Harlem. And,
If you told me it was Harlem, I would have no
clue.
Reason to disagree with
Harlem
you.
is right.
I'd go on Google Maps and I'd be like, that says Harlem.
Well, now it's funny, there's new names that started with the businesses calling it Soha, south of Harlem. It's like, but what is there's a place that opened on her block called Max Soha. That's like an Italian restaurant, a little kind of fine dining eatery. But it's like, what's Soha when it's across the street from Grant Projects? It's like an intersection south of Harlem. Like across the street is Harlem. So it's like you south of Harlem, word, you Soha, you so close to not being Soha.
Yeah. I mean, but gentrification, that's what they do, right? Like
I mean, it's always the gentrification and almost New York is like the first gentrifying city almost. It's like we always had that new people moving in. Let's rename this. Let's knock this building down. Put something new. New York's all about that rebuilding, and it's like
big facts.
Yeah.
Big facts. We were just talking about that with our last interview, and we were discussing about how that's a part of New York City. What hospital were you born at?
I was born in Lenox Hill.
Lenox Hill. I was born at Our Lady of Mercy. Our Lady of Mercy is no longer there in the Bronx. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's like you growing up in New York City, you were used to the experience of maybe where you were born, maybe the building that you grew up in, maybe a spot that you used to chill at heavy when you were a little kid is no longer there.
You talk about the Upper West Side where I grew up, my mom's block is like, the world I grew up in is no longer there. It's the entire feel of it is drastically different,
But it's because the that neighborhood is again, right? Like it's damn near the end of the good before, at least in their eyes, right?
Right.
Before we get uptown and you get to all the
Well, it was always a joke. 96th Street on the train. You see all the white people get out, and then the next stop is uptown, So and I was just in that last stop, but then I always was a little Harlem centric because I had friends from uptown and I just kind of started wandering uptown earlier, and then
but 96 is one of those things that back in the 90s, 80s, it wasn't as what is considered nowadays.
Right.
Nowadays it's considered just as bougie as the rest of it's the Upper West Side.
Right.
And this is where
people don't understand that
is where people like Peter Rosenberg moved to. When they decide to plant roots here and this is an affluent neighborhood.
Right.
But it wasn't always like that.
It was very different. And
different.
Matter of fact, I had a lot of people were scared to come to my block specifically because I was on the block of the Plaza, which was, kind of, rough project in the day. And then we had Gotta Riverside, another project, kind of sandwiching the block. And then you had my building that I grew up in, which was a middle class building, and the building across the street from me, giant 27 floor middle class buildings built in the 70s, right? And they were kind of middle of the road, sandwiched by the PJs, walk one block over to Central Park West, and now you got, Millionaires Row. And so we had rich, middle, and poor all on the same block, but but the streets definitely kind of belonged to the hood back then. And it was kind of it was a different New York. 90th Street then was tougher than any block in Harlem now almost. You know what I mean? It's such a different world. It was just kind of permeated with just crime and street shit, but it was also good. It was community gardens and more of a vibe in the street. Small businesses, my mom's block also turned from, we had literally 5 or 6 businesses on each side of the block, 10 businesses on one block. And then after a certain year, it became a Dwayne Reed on one side and bought the whole block. And then for a while, CVS bought the other side and they battled until CVS bounced.
McDonald's goes up. Right. Starbucks comes.
And it's all just, cookie cutter, boom, dropping in.
So hold on. From what I understanding, a huge part of this is just there's no more mom and pop shops and it's all name brand.
Yeah. It's all name brand, way bigger spots. So we used to have a little pharmacy where the guy knew your name. You go in there, he's like, "Oh, what you got?" But it's little. It's like the size of this room. Is
And
But
it was some name RX pharmacy.
Right. But the pharmacist knew everybody in the hood.
Everybody in the neighborhood.
He knew what your medications were. He was more involved with, it was a better service you got.
Right,
Actually,
absolutely.
he was like an extension of your doctor.
Absolutely.
Way more than your, current
Yo, apparently
pharmacist.
that's what a pharmacist is just supposed to be.
Right.
And none of us get that experience.
None of us do. Definitely not in the big pharmacy. Even now I try to not use big pharma. I'll try to use the little bummy ones, and they're better because the big pharmacies, if you want to pick up a medication, you're gonna wait online. And they're like, we can't fit. Come back in an hour. I go to the little pharmacy. There's nobody in there. I just walk in, bing, give me my shit, bounce, and it's all good.
Nowadays, it's very that's the way the doctors are too.
Yeah.
Like they have so many patients. There's very little personal. It's almost very like, okay, hurry up.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? What's not? Oh, okay. Let me get your blood. All right, get out of here. I'll let you know what the blood work says. The blood work came back fine. You're fine. Yeah. But it's like, am I 100% fine?
I don't know.
Like, how much is the blood work really telling you? Like, are you really doing a thorough check?
Not even.
No.
Man, I ended up in a situation where I fainted last year, and I went to the ER and shit. And even though it's all free and whatnot, it's the same shit because it's free. Everybody goes to the hospital. Blood work, this, that, out the hospital. And then in Quebec, there's this family doctor program. You got to wait 4 to 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
Then you get a doctor who will do more than just the basic blood work. And you just got to pray that, because there is no private sector. So good fucking.
I've heard there's the waiting times.
I'm saying there's no, brutal. So it's like, there's no money option. You just wait till you get a doctor. And, that's just what it is.
Yeah, there's ups and downs, so that's, that way. Waiting sucks.
But that blood work shit, the in and out, it's not real medicine. It's just, you don't have anything really fast that can diagnose, so go talk to the next man.
Right. So.
Yeah. We have a typical opening question, but nothing's typical about this in-person thing, so we're learning the new swagger of it all. But, basically, it's a bit of a little story, and then it'll kind of get the conversation going. It's kind of in line with what we've been talking about. So, starts off with my girl. She was washing the dishes one time, and she had the Black Eyed Peas song playing, that I got a feeling. Ooh, she's vibing, dancing, doing all that. And I just had this thought looking at her like, yo, when the fuck did this song become chores music? Because, if you think about the song and run it back to, 2010 and whatnot, this is, middle of the night banger, everybody's drunk and celebrating, it's everybody's favorite song all around the world, and then you run it up till today, and now it's moved from this party celebration song into this chores music. I'm feeling kind of bored doing this workout, and I need my brain to go back to the fun times, and it's kind of taken on that role in life, and it got me thinking about how music kind of grows and goes on a journey with us, as we do our things. It's a song, so it doesn't change at all, but its purpose in our life evolves so much, and it just kind of got me thinking, all them kids partying right now, they don't even know that that's their future, chores music, that's just how it's going to be.
Your hit song is going to be your chore music later.
Facts. Yeah, all the kids growing up to Kate Flacko, pop.
Yeah,
bop. That's later on in your life, you're gonna be in your crib, sweeping him up and talk about
getting sturdy with the broom.
That stick is gonna be the broomstick.
Yeah, exactly.
But it got me thinking also about the being young, right? When you're a little one, you're also still surrounded by music and shit, and there's all these sounds and stuff. Only there's a good chance that you weren't actually in control of what you were listening to. Parents had their vibes, the community's got the vibes, the radio's got the vibes, etc. Depending on where you are, what time period you're from, etc., everything's going to sound and feel completely different. And that just got me realizing that, as musicians and such, music's such an impactful part of our story. But whenever we do in this interviews or we talk about our lives, we always started at that point where we, start rapping or we start having our favorite songs, discounting all that part when we had no control over the music in our lives. So I was hoping you could run us back to being the youngest version of yourself you can remember being up in Harlem, and describe a little bit about what it sounded like to be you before you had any control over the music.
Well, I grew up, listening to my father, who was an avid music fan, and my aunt and uncle, who were also super avid jazz listeners and vinyl collectors. And they both had what was it? I can't even tell you now what brand it was, but they had the giant wood-mounted speakers, you know, with the speaker head standing, 5 feet tall. My aunt and uncle and my father had the same system, knocking, like, you know what I mean? Hooked up through the receiver, And so first it was vinyl, then we got the tape decks later, one of my very first memories and feelings is my father and my mother rocking me on their chest in my living room playing Linda Ronstadt. Linda Ronstadt. Super, if you're not up on her, super.
I'm not.
Super not up on her.
Oh, so Linda Ronstadt. Wow, this is
You
cool.
can
So I get to
both
put
of
you
us.
on. Linda Ronstadt was like a country pop soul star of the 70s and 80s. But
like the Taylor Swift of her era.
Kind of, but way more
Way more,
soulful.
of course.
Way more soulful.
Right.
So she was like...
Taylor doesn't have the soulful.
Right.
She has the pop country.
The pop country, right. So this is like something deeper.
Right.
But it maybe, she shares some of that lineage.
I mean, it's just that back then, it was all more soulful.
Right, exactly. So, you might have heard a few of her songs. Like some of her, she has a couple songs that are covers, like "It's So Easy to Fall in Love." I don't know if you heard that one, or "Blue Bayou."
What's the song that you remember when they had you on the chest?
So I think the album was called Simple Dreams. It has "Blue Bayou," "Carmelita," which is funny too because that's a super like country kind of blues song where they're talking about heroin, and it's like, "Carmelita, hold me tighter. I think I'm going down. And I'm all strung out on heroin on the outskirts of town." And I had no idea what that... It was just like a cool... Carmelita.
Yeah,
I knew that it was a name. And as a kid, I remember... It wasn't until I was like a teenager and I went back to it because it was something from such a young childhood memory. And I got back into it as a teenager. Like, let me put this... I started getting into hip-hop, sampling stuff. And I started going through the old record stash and putting on these records. And I'm like, wait a minute. She was singing about heroin openly.
Right.
And I just it was so young and innocent to me. I didn't.
Yeah, no, we don't know those things.
Yeah,
right?
you don't know.
When you're young, you don't. Why would a young person know the name heroin unless like things got that bad?
Unless I had to know.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah.
So, that was it. So that was a big record for me. And then and then just being on the Upper West and in Harlem and just anywhere in New York City in that era, hip hop was so much in the street that it was breakdancing was like in the street as much as beggars are in the street. It's like something you see all day throughout the entire city. And it's just in every schoolyard and this is coming out of every boombox. And so it was just kind of the culture of school. I went to PS 84, the public school right outside of I looked out the window from the 15th floor down into the schoolyard where I went to school. You could literally hear this. My window is the sounds of the schoolyard all day. So you hear that shit coming through your window and it's, then that's what it was, Houdini, Beastie Boys, one of my first hip hop. My actual first hip hop tape that I got. My first piece of music that I owned was a tape also. So my parents had vinyl, then they got a tape deck. And when my first piece of music, my parents gifted me for my birthday, it must have been 6th or 7th birthday, was Michael Jackson Thriller on tape.
Word.
Had my name written on the corner in pen. So I took it to school. The kid wouldn't steal it. And so that's what, like, those are my first musical memories, Beatles, my mom was a real big Beatles fan. So she played Sgt. Pepper's a lot. We had that on vinyl. So they were also into, eclectic things, rock, but a lot of soul, a lot of jazz, Paul Simon. My father's a big Paul Simon fan, so when Graceland hit, they loved that record. They played it a lot, and that's sounds like my childhood. And then, you know, then getting into hip hop, it was Beastie Boys. And that's when I was so young that I didn't know what rap was.
Right.
I was just like, it's funny. And I heard it in camp, you know, I'm in day camp and everybody's playing it. The counselors, the kid, we all just loving this album. And it's funny and it's kind of like a little rude, you know, but I was too young to realize how rude it was, maybe.
Right.
And I just thought it was cool. I was like, it's funny how these guys are not singing. Like, this group doesn't really sing, you know? But they're singing, but they're not. And I didn't even know what a rap was. And I had my it was the first time my grandfather went to buy me something. He went, you know, and he was into like musical theater. He was an actor and you know, actually he's been in a bunch of movies, had extra roles, a couple speaking roles and things. And so he was, you know, but he didn't understand at all, you know what I mean? And so he got me the album and we played it in the car back. I'm like 6 years old. And his like, I never seen him so mad. His face turned red, but he didn't even know. He didn't even yell at me, but I could just see him steaming. I was like, what's wrong? Like, why are you mad? But yeah, so that was, you know, I would say those are my first musical memories, like starting from there. And then hip hop, it took me a little while. So I had Beastie Boys, and then it took a few years. I still didn't really I kind of liked it. And then I started getting into other rappers, but then I didn't know who was good and not. But I started maybe a little before in like, I want to say, I forget what was out of this. Maybe it was at the same time Hammer was out, but a little earlier. But you know, it's like you had like the poppy Hammer type of rappers, and I'm like, oh, this is dope, but I don't know. And I had a friend in my building, my man Guy. Shout out to my man Guy. And so he was like my older brother, you know. He was into hip hop. He used to, you know, babysit me and my brother. They lived a couple floors down.
Yeah, we all needed the person older than us to put us on the things.
Especially me, because I had a younger brother, but I didn't have a big bro.
Right.
So I didn't have nobody to be like, oh, he picked on. I had to, for my little brother, if somebody picked on him, I'd be like, come through like gangbusters the next day. Like for me, I didn't really have anybody. I had Guy, but I would have. It was a little, I didn't like to bother anybody with my, you know, my stuff, but that's who I had. That was the closest thing I had. So it was great to just have him there. And he was the one I asked, and I was like, you know, who do you think is the best rapper? You know, like, he was like, Big Daddy Kane. And so I just went, and I think, it was Kane, the first 2 Kane albums were already out, and the third one was right about to drop. And I just got them, and once I had all 3, I just studied them, and it was like, that just like opened up something in my mind where I just knew it clicked with me. I guess I was always into words before and wordplay, and actually I was known before. So you want to talk about roots. So in PS84, when I was a kid, before I knew what rap was, but it was just soaking it up, I was like the snap battle king in the schoolyard, because I had long platinum blonde hair and I stuck out like a sore thumb. It was mostly Hispanic black kids in the school, but a mix, you know, it was white kids, a couple Asians, but we were definitely a minority, and I was definitely food on the schoolyard until a certain time, or attempted, you know, so that's how I got slick with words before anything. We used to have snap battles, and, you know, you just, you know, your shoes, your shirt, you know, whatever. And so that was my first playing with wordplay. So by the time I got into rap later, it was like I had already kind of practiced these jokes and being funny and clever. And then the music part just blending in was just like, I don't know, very soulful. It hit me hard. And then I just became obsessed with it. And I started racking tapes from the HMV on 72nd Street. Let me get in. There lacks security.
I used to get the HMV on 34th, was it?
30, yeah, all that. I mean, every one of those spots you could just like, they didn't really, or they would tag up their shits, but they would never beep. Like,
shouts out to HMV.
Man, they definitely beat.
Definitely
HMV.
People like us that help put them out of business. I mean, the music industry also, the whole situation.
No,
let's
facts.
right. Speaking about elementary school, like what was the obsession, right, when you were a kid? Comic books, cartoons, video games, sports. Like what was the where were
So I started out, I would say, early it was sports and like the 86 Mets with my pops because he was a huge Mets fan and he was a baseball fan. But then I kind of rejected it early, and you know, my little brother ended up he was a great baseball player, so he ended up being the baseball guy. But I kind of threw off the sports early, and I kind of, you know, my uncle taught me boxing when I was a kid, but I got in a little too many fights as a young kid, and they made him stop at a very young age. And so I was kind of, I just kind of geared towards boxing more. And I went into boxing later in high school. And then as an adult, you know, I trained boxing for many years.
Sure.
And so, but team sports were never my thing. Comic books were definitely my thing. That was a huge obsession of mine. And drawing, I would say, was my first expression before even predating any of the music by far, even predating the snapback. I was always drawing from a young kid. And so I just, you know, gravitated toward visual art first, but then I just kind of, I guess with pursuing visual art, it was always hard for me to get my point across. Like I could never quite get out what's in my head.
Right.
So then when I found rap, it just, practicing was easier, or maybe I was naturally more gifted at it or something, and I found I could paint the picture exactly how I wanted it. Sure. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I seemed to excel without, and then I started going there for you know, many years. But now I combine them, and you know, I always did graffiti, and now I do visual art. I paint canvases. And so and doing my comic, you know, which combines, I didn't illustrate it, but you know, I oversaw the project, and it combines visual art and music because that's kind of those are the two biggest influences on me and the ways that I wanted to express myself. The comics hit me later because I got back into comics as a grown man. I'll tell you a fucked up story. I remember, after school every day, we would probably shoot hoops a little, before I got into smoking weed, and then, you know, then we go to the comic store, you know, and I used to steal. My parents, you know, I would get caught stealing out any purse, I get fucked up, but the token packs. My parents used to just buy token packs.
Oh, the tokens.
But they buy the month, because they would just be like, and so they have stacks of packs, so I would just steal a pack. And you could use those as tokens with currency in New York City.
New York City, everything's currency.
Yeah. So I could go to the bodega, but they'll usually give you, if it was $1.25, I'll give you $1. Right. Yeah. So, you know, I would
Same as food stamps and everything else. It's like a discounted.
Exactly.
We'll give you what it's worth minus a couple cents.
Right.
So we make something.
Exactly. So yeah, I would take, you know, those tokens, buy comic books, but I remember the very day when I was like budgeting my shit, and I was like, damn, and I first got into smoking weed. Then now every day after school we getting up.
You got a budget for your weed.
Right. I had to make the decision. I was like being a little like, you know, like 13-year-old, like a little scientist. Like, I was like, I got to cut this comic shit out, which kind of sucks. Right. In retrospect, comics are so dope.
Yo, imagine if you had the collection from everything from back then just in a box, and the value of that now.
I have all that shit and it's worth nothing.
Not for real.
I have comics. I have stacks. I still collect comics to this day.
The market popped on it, but I can empathize with it. I got a bar somewhere in my catalog that I say something about being fly, since from comic books and cartoons to beers and bitches. Yeah, you know what I mean. And that's where it goes. You know what I mean? Where like you care about comic books, cartoons, and all this shit, and then girls came around, and I was just like, all right, well, you know, my focus is now firmly planted on buns and everything that had to do with impressing girls. So like clothes and fashion became like the most important thing after that, but I also can empathize with the coming back to it as an adult. Because I got the Marvel Unlimited app, and I've been paying for that for like over 6 years now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
but it's
and
new stuff to read.
So
and
like,
you can-
I don't buy the physical anymore, but like I keep up with the stories, you
Right,
know,
yeah.
because like I'm interested in the stories, you
It's
know.
dope.
So
You know, it's, at least it's like it's some form of reading, which people hardly do anymore. So if at least you flex your mind in some way, and I'm still that. I got back into comics, you know, as an adult, and then I just became a super fiend for years.
Yeah.
And then I went to like I don't even fuck with superhero comics mostly. I will here and there, like, but it gotta be real well written. But I read like crime noir comics and like Italian comics, and you know, all different like.
Word.
You know, sci-fi shit, or just like some of the most bugged out shit I've ever read is in comics, but it's like there's some really off the wall shit. But a lot of art, even comics.
When you were a kid, what were the books that really got you into comic books?
So as a baby, it just like the way my parents got me into music, playing Linda Ronstadt, they read me Spider-Man. So Spider-Man was my first intro, and I had Spider-Man zips. The sneakers, I was Spider-Man out as a kid. I loved Spidey. So that was my first, you know, and matter of fact, I remember it's like toys weren't even it wasn't until Secret Wars that they dropped the little G.I. Joe size figurines. They had the dolls that were like Barbie doll size. And they had cloth
or like
clothing.
the old G.I. Joe, the original G.I. Joe, which is like a doll.
A doll,
which is like, bro, I'm not.
So yeah, I had that.
Shouts to Steven Spielberg. No, who's the one behind Star Wars? George Lucas.
George Lucas.
George Lucas is the one that originated that action figure style.
Oh, he said he was.
He's the one that went with the Star Wars
and
one,
started
and then the
with
G.I.
Star
Joe,
Wars, right?
And then the G.I. Joes came
Star Wars
after.
predated G.I. Joe, right? But G.I. Joe, they just did this. Elbow. We give you an elbow. More articulation.
Right.
I want a dude that could be like, we want to imagine we're playing comic books.
Right.
I want to see the dude do this and snuff the guy, then I want him to do this. You know, like, it's like you want to like play with the shape of it, you know, and that was the whole thing. And so G.I. Joe knew that. So
yeah, no, absolutely.
And then that was a side thing too, because my parents I didn't have like a huge toy chest like kids now, but then, you know, I had my 5 G.I. Joes. We would take a little Phillips head screwdriver, take the parts apart, and remake. You know, I had 5, but I really had infinity. You know,
right.
And then I would draw each one and make it a character and make a name for them. And then, you know, the Cobra guys always had the baddest helmets anyway, so I would take a Cobra helmet, but put it on a G.I. Joe body, and you know, like do all type of fly changes. That's
totally a thing nowadays.
Yeah.
Like they take. Right, like that's how they make other, you know, like, oh, we're gonna make Villain's Head, or I'm trying to think of these dudes from Clerks,
Kevin Smith,
Kevin Smith, but what's their
Dante Randall, Kevin Smith, Jay and Silent Bob.
Jay and Silent Bob action figurines, and it's like made out of General Duke G.I. Joe figure.
Right, they just do the cast.
They repaint it. They change it up, and then they repackage it as like Jay and Silent Bob or some other action figure that never got an action figure, right? Me, Holden, right? Like that's how the people that do make those action figures now, that's how they go about it.
He-Man body. There's so many. Exactly. It's like you know, it's such they've been doing it for a long time.
That's pretty cool that they found a way to recycle action figures.
Upcycle.
Yeah. You're right, upcycling.
Well, a lot of times they're just taking the mold, so they make their own. But they'll just take that body, they know what it is, put it in plaster, and then pour their own, you know.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's still lit.
Yeah.
And then they do what he was talking about doing, which is like then screwing it back, putting the little rubber thing that held the body, held the torso.
And then eventually the rubber band pops and the legs
separate from the torso. You gotta.
We all had torso decapitated GI Joes in the bin.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. It was always your favorite.
And then
one
I would
too.
take other. Then you had other. I would take a regular rubber
You
band.
always damage the shit you love the most.
And
That's
then you
like
had
some life message shit.
You had the GI Joe with the loose torso because he had a regular rubber band in there that's kind of like wiggling around.
Right,
like,
he was wild wiggly.
You had to double up the rubber
He was like Woody in Toy Story, right? Like wild, like wiggly.
Yo, why your He-Man walking with a switch, bro?
It's
It's like, yo, he got the wiggly rubber band. Man.
Wiggly
That wasn't
rubber
his
band.
choice, man.
Word, yo. All right, so
you're the first person I've talked to in all our interviews that made his own toys out of his own toys.
word.
That's a fact.
Absolute fact. 75 intervieos. I mean, he's talking about R75 plus
like an extra 100 change.
or whatever.
So let's say 220 people first mass and something. And I met the toy collectors. Nobody's like being like, nah, I only have 5 GI Joes, but I had infinity because
I mean, I wish I made that up. One of my homies in camp, I believe, put me on to that. And here's the crazy shit. Here's how he put me on. We used to do because I never really had none. They had Bionic 6 characters, which were die-cast metal G.I. Joes.
G.I. Joes.
But they were interchangeable with the G.I. Joes. So that's my man in camp showed me like a G.I. Joe with metal arms. I'm like, yo, where'd you get this? And he's like, yo, he
gave Snake Eyes like a bazooka arm from one of the bad guys or something like that. Yeah,
there was this one G.I. Joe that was Mad Diesel. I think his name was Road Pig.
Road
Pig.
Road Pig from Bionic 6.
He was G.I. Joe. But he was a G.I. Joe with a brolic. He was like chest naked, but he had like a giant Arnold Schwarzenegger chest that was he black? Bigger. No, he's a white dude. He had a white flat top.
Word.
I think he's supposed to be Australian or something.
Word.
But so he got a white flat top, chest naked, but he had the brolic chest plate that was bigger than the typical G.I. Joe chest. So it was kind of I did mad characters with him because he just looks like way more hulked out than every G.I. Joe. You know what I mean?
So you said you're making characters that are kind of like a comic book writer would be like sketching out their characters, and then you would like be using these toys as a reference point for that.
Yeah, pretty much. And I used to make my own comics. Like I have copies of some of them. You know, I
that's dope. You saved them.
Yeah, I saved them.
Yeah, I don't have them saved. I have drawings, but not like the actual. I used to use the composition notebook.
These are I
would pull out I would take off. You take off the black part on the outside. It gives you access to the binding, and then you take off the binding, and then I would use like 4 or 8 pages, and that's 16, doubled up, and that would be my comic book, and I'd make the comic, do all my drawings, cover up all the lines, all the coloring, everything, and that was my comic book that I was selling to people and shit.
That's dope though. That just shows that like how creative you were and how much you. It's like we took in these things and we immediately were like, this is so dope. I want to create one. You know what I mean? Like I want to do my own. And even at a young age, it's funny, like the confidence you have as a kid to try something that you have no shot of even doing it, but you're just flexing. Because if you get anywhere even baby close, it's actually very impressive. And it's how you start becoming.
But I was just like thinking, like, imagine there was like the TikToks and shit back then and y'all was making comic books. Y'all probably could have actually
way more popping.
Right. I mean, we had to be so much more. I mean, like, all I had was computer paper.
No, but what I'm saying is like, if y'all was, because you still would be in the comic books and superheroes and drawing and shit. Only now you could do something.
Now there's an avenue. You could put your kid in a class for comics, drawing. When I was a kid, it's like, you want art, you're going to have to study, like still lifes, and they're not going to teach you how to do comics.
No,
that's the last thing you get to, and that's what I wanted to do. If you get to it, I went to high school. My first year of high school, I was in LaGuardia for art, which was a very prestigious art school. It's the fame school,
I got denied.
Everybody. I mean, it's a very rare thing. I was one of these kids. I got into all the science schools. I got into Stuyvesant, Bronx Science, Brooklyn Tech, LaGuardia, and I wanted to go because I was trying to be, I didn't care about that shit. I wanted to be a little fucking hoodlum, and I wanted to go to humanities, which is like a regular, it wasn't bad, but it was just like a regular neighborhood school. And my mom was like, are you fucking high?
Your
She's
friends
like,
all wanted to go there.
Yeah,
or your friends were all there. Or something like that.
yeah. And she was like, you got into a specialized school. You could go to one of the math and science schools, or you could go to LaGuardia for art. So I went to LaGuardia for art. But that year, I mean, I did some dope stuff, and I kind of wish that I stuck with it more, but, you know, I wasn't into that type of art so much, and it was just like...
Oh, but that's an interesting point, though. So, like, if you do want to go to the art route, I'm sure while there are comic book courses, if you still want to go the formal route...
I've taken comic classes as an adult.
But, like, if you want to go, like, the school route, you're still going to have to go through all the really boring art before you get to, like, maybe you get a snapshot of the one class.
There's merit in going through all that shit because they taught us perspective. They were really teaching us the building blocks you would need.
Right.
But I think, especially as children and as a creative, you're teaching something that's creative. If a kid has a specific direction for his creativity, fucking indulge him.
Yeah, no.
Throw him into that, like, exclusively.
You can teach perspectives in comics and shit. Like, you can do it all within the world of what's interesting. It doesn't
you would learn all of it. You would have to learn all of it anyway. Just learn it through comics.
And
like,
the truth is
what you like, you know?
The truth is that each of those, right, like, we were just interviewing a artist who, right, like, is featured in Sotheby's and does Danny Cortez. I don't know if you're familiar with Danny Cortez. He does like miniatures of like New York City stuff, right?
This is incredible.
But like I'm like, you know, he's talking about like, you know, how some people in the art world like look down on what he does. And it's just like people in the art world look down on everything. They look down on comic book
but they can't do what he does.
They can't do but they can't do what comic book artists do. You know what I mean? Comic book artists, it's their own. It's its own. The same way that Basquiat couldn't do comic book art and comic book artists can't do Basquiat. It's the same thing. And
Basquiat, I'm gonna say something unpopular.
But it all needs to be respected. You know what I'm saying?
Basquiat compared to the average comic artist is trash. You know,
you appreciate comic book art more.
Comics
I'm not mad at it.
Are so hard. It's like that's the most grueling, and you have to have your chops, talent of any art form. Because look, this is actually my comic.
Right.
Tales from the Third Rail. Every fucking page is a completed piece of art that could hang on the wall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Absolutely.
Right? They keep going. They keep going.
Keep going.
A book is a bunch of art.
It's a gallery's
it's
work.
More than a
gallery's work.
Just the visuals.
Yes.
Then it has writing and a plot. It's a
story.
It's a movie, a screenplay, and a gallery.
And a movie, right.
Right? And so it's like, it's so, and the difference between being able to draw things.
And you have to do lettering.
I mean, you know, and now these things, you know, so in a like if you go to a Marvel or a DC book, these are jobs into themselves. And matter of fact,
each one.
Yeah. Lettering is not even done. Lettering is done by lettering houses mostly. It's not, you don't even get a specific person. There'll be a business that does lettering. And there maybe there's 4 guys working there. Then you got the colorer, the penciler, the inker. You know, and so those are 3 separate jobs.
And you still got the editor. The editor,
and
the editor is important.
Right.
Like I always cite to people, you know, as you know, sounds like you're in it, right? So like as a huge Marvel MCU fan, right? Like I'm like I always tell people like the biggest mistake that DC makes is they don't make a studio where like not only did Marvel do a studio, but they made sure that the studio had writers, artists, editors, all from the comics.
Right.
So they can help curate what you're doing in the movies. Make sure, because a lot of times your director won't have grown up reading the comic.
Facts.
So you need a bridge in between there. You need the guys that they consult. Like it can't be, you know, it's one of those where like, yes, have artistic freedom, but at the same time, don't go crazy because it's like for that, then you're just making your own original story that has nothing to do with this comic book story. You know what I mean?
Why do they think these characters were popular? It's so funny. It's like it's all laid out for you. You know what I mean? It's like everything is here. but you have to, like you said, why not have the guys that made it's just, it makes sense. They understand that universe.
Yeah.
Let them tell the stories and let them, let people work with characters they have an affinity for and they have a deep knowledge of. And, if they retell, there's certain things have to change for the screen and certain things that, should remain classic. It's an art to capturing the essence,
Right.
Because you want to change it. You have to bring it up to date.
Mm-hmm.
The comics don't make sense. Peter Parker's been.
That's what happens.
He went from 15 to like 35, but it took him like 70 years.
70 years.
And
Yeah.
so like these things are weird, and not too many things have happened. So you have to condense and kind of retell them. So they require that.
That's what happens with the volumes, right? Each volume of a comic book gives you a new chapter. Every artist that takes on the comic starts, usually they stay with the comic for a little while, for a generation, so to speak.
And then you take
for
some
about
of the
4 to 5 years, 7 years, maybe. They write those stories, and then they bring that book to life in the stories that they tell through it and the storytelling that they do. But then comes along another artist, comes along Jonathan Hickman, comes along, this guy, that guy, and Ta-Nehisi Coates, and gives a different spin on Black Panther that was never spun before, and that's the point of it, is for everybody to bring it to their generation and give it a voice that it didn't have.
Yeah, well, that, comics is the closest we have, I think, to, these are our Greek fables, man, for modern culture. That's what it is.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah. And that's what it is. It's our Zeus, it's our Hercules, and people are telling, these used to be oral traditions. People would tell the story and maybe write it, and now it's like, it's updated, it's constantly updated. They're having new adventures every month, and it goes on, and then they die, and then they come back, and then like, so it's like, it's just such a, a lot of it is, it's in our public consciousness somehow. These characters are fake, but they're so real to so many people, and people just idolize them, and so it could be actually important stuff could come out of them, like like any art form, like. So
I think a lot of important stuff, even if you look at it like just the role that comics are playing in the social justice debate, whether or not you're pro or against making a character black to represent somebody or not, just their function in society has been a focal point of pretty much every sensitive topic you can think of, because they've tried to incorporate that into...
No, they do incorporate, and that's where the controversy is turning. Iceman now is a gay character.
You watch
this
people
character
rage.
has a race change. Nick Fury went from being white. Nick Fury looked like he could have been Double A.B's uncle, right? The way that he looks, a little bit older with an eye patch. Now he looks like Samuel L. Jackson.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying?
But that's the ultimate universe. So in the regular Marvel, he's still white.
Word.
So he's that Nick Fury is white, but just ultimate universe. They created a new universe.
Yeah.
But you could even think about it. Back in the day, I bet they did the same shit with Zeus.
Yeah,
there was new Zeus, and then they were like, "Nah, that Zeus is trash."
They did it with Jesus. Everywhere you go, there's a reason why.
There were 3 councils on the Bible. 3 separate councils got together to re-canonize the fucking Bible.
Right. That's why you see you could see Ethiopian black Jesus with dreads, or you could see European Italian Jesus with blonde locks, and everywhere in between.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because every culture was like, we're going to tailor this for us. You know what I mean?
The classic white Jesus is actually the image of Cesare Borgia.
Yeah, the Borgias. I've heard that they wanted the Sistine Chapel painted in their
and
images.
That dude became the basis. Anyway.
Yeah.
So you were into comics, enjoying that when you was a little one. Were you also into music and other kinds of things, or was that your main focus, when you were a little one?
So little, it was definitely music, definitely comics rather, and then it took about, I would say, till I was in junior high when I became about 10 or 11. 11, I started really I got into rap, bought all those Big Daddy Kane albums, I started writing raps. I started, we had a little home video camera, which wasn't little. It was actually like, that big.
Right.
But I would like record, like doing raps and record them on a cassette. And
So you're a cassette tape rapper.
I was a cassette tape rapper. Exactly. And so
From the era.
from that era. And so, yeah, we would just, I was always like, I was the one motivating most of my friends into this. Like I was, I had friends that were into the music probably just as much, but I was the one that wanted to be like,
You wanted it the most.
I wanted it the most. I was the one that wanted to be the rapper.
Yeah.
They liked the rap. I wanted to rap.
I come from the same group of friends.
Right.
Like in
So-
childhood, like they could,
Right.
they would if I pushed them to.
Right.
When they would get on a track, it's because I paid for studio time and was like, yo, get on this track, get on this beat that I picked. But they didn't want it, right? Like they didn't care about that.
Yeah. I went through the same. Yeah, I had some high school friends like that too. And so actually, funny enough, my man who drew the comic went to LaGuardia with me.
Word.
You know what I mean? He used to draw and be into rap too, and we had a rap group before he was my comic artist. So he had bars. He was like Rakim, like
Dope.
crazy bars. He's the only feature on my first album.
Nice.
He has a verse on the outro. And people are always like, yo, who is that? Because he kind of got a deep voice, like, like a shine voice, but a Rakim flow. He's a crazy writer. And he stopped and he probably, he claims he can't write any more bars now, but I know he can. And he can do it, but he's an incredible visual artist. I mean, and you see this the work he did on the comic here is incredible, but he can do oil paintings magnificently. Like he studied the human form. He's been he's a member of the Art Student League. He's an incredible artist.
What we said, right? Because back then, in order for us to ever get to what we wanted to do,
right,
we had to learn all these other
right. You go through everything.
And so,
right.
but then you're able to do those other things.
Right.
Like he's able to.
Like he just found like he was more like that. He did one or two shows with us, like maybe early, but he didn't want the stage. He's like, no, I want to do my painting, and that was his angle.
Yeah, visual artist types. There's a type. Like the second they see the crowd, they're like, nah, I'm gonna go hide in my studio and draw.
Word.
You know what? I always say that about in hip hop in New York specifically, right? Because that's where I can give you big doses of study numbers, right? I've noticed that producers and engineers are a little like that.
Yo, facts.
They're introverts. They'll sit there with a beat for days on end before they ever even care about going out to a club or to a spot. Socializing is super secondary, third-ary, fourth-ary.
That's some people.
Some
people roll like that.
And it's similar to artists like that. Like engineers and producers have that kind of in them. That's kind of almost goes hand in hand with being a part of that.
World.
That world.
Hey, I've been I used to make beats, and I'm a visual artist also. So I have both. I could be introvert, extrovert. I like to go out. I like to party and all that. But then after a while, sometimes I do get like adult social anxiety, at big events where I'm just I don't want to be. And when I get drunk too, I do the Irish goodbye all the time. People know because I might not even intend on leaving, but I'll be drunk. And I just walk by the door sometimes, and the moment hits me, I'm like, oh, it's time to bounce. I gotta go. I'm done. I'm out. No pieces. I'm out.
Nah, but especially if you're drunk though, sometimes your body knows nah, you gotta go.
Yeah, you gotta go. And I got this other disease that's whack that probably a few people hate me for. It's called this is why I get the social anxiety, because I have I got 10 people in me to chop it up with. Schmooze with, yo, what up? Even if it's somebody I love, after the 10th one at a party, I'm kind of I just want to sip my drink, and just and I'll see somebody across the room that I actually know, and I pretend I didn't see them. Oh, did they catch me? But of course they caught you, and you're like, fuck. And you're like, I look like a fucking ass. They probably think I'm an asshole, but nah, I just have this disease.
And now you're going through even more oh, he saw me. Now he thinks I'm an asshole.
Now
Like,
you think something.
now I feel like a piece of shit because now I'm an asshole to this guy that I don't. That it's not you.
It's not
me.
you. It's that has nothing to do with you.
It's
me in the
moment.
moment.
It's me in the moment. I'm having my. Yeah, nah. I mean, I don't have that, but I can understand.
You can understand.
And
sometimes
I have a lot of friends like that.
I dead ass have that problem. So
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I'm not. Irish goodbye every once in a blue.
Right.
But I really am more of a like, yo, I dap everybody in, I dap everybody out.
Nah, it's good. It's a good habit to do.
I'm also like, I enjoy being life of the party, and you know what I mean. Like, I enjoy being the center of attention.
I do that too. Yeah.
But you know what?
There's levels. Sometimes there's like your people. Like if it's my close friends, it's like. Or I got enough of them with me. It's like you could be anywhere, and it's like that's like fam, you know. Then it's like I think it's more like acquaintances. It's like when I don't. That's why I like to party in other cities more because I don't like to know. I think that is a problem. I don't like to know too many of the crowd because there's something about that, like having to stop like every time. I want to meet new people. That's why I'm out. Show me the new ones.
Right.
But you know. Yeah, so I could be both, you know. I'm definitely very social and very talkative at times. So.
But it makes sense how some people might not want to rap.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
I get it.
Exactly.
Yeah, nah, but also, you know, I think, like, humans, we have everything in us, right? Like, we have the good, the bad, the ugly. We have our social... You know, and even if you are an introvert, there is still those moments, right? Like let's sort of say you're the most, not you, but like let's sort of say for the people out there who are like the Kim Basinger, was it the lady that played Eminem's mom in 8 Mile? Yeah. I believe she has that agoraphobia.
Right. She had a couple. I know she had that. What's it called? Munchausen by proxy too.
Oh,
which
shit.
Is, which means you claim your kid is sick all the time that when your kid's not sick.
Word.
So you're like, she was like convincing him that he had like, you know, all these things wrong with him that he didn't have. Like,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Word. But you know, she also had that agoraphobia
which
thing
is
where
like
she doesn't want to go out.
Open places, right? Right.
So like people like that. But even when you're that person, there's still, when you live a life like that, you still have those moments of like, oh my God, I really want to be around a lot of people. I want to socialize.
Right.
There's still that one moment in a decade, the one moment in every year,
right,
or something like that. You know what I mean?
We're social creatures. It feels good once you.
Social. Yeah.
People are just very, you know, become very nervous about it and very, you know, you can be like.
Inside your head.
Yeah, inside your head.
All
exactly. Yeah. Right. Everybody's been in that moment, or like most of us could pull it together. So you've had a moment sometimes when you're hanging out with somebody, or probably like on a date or something, where you're like not feeling your company and you just want to bounce, but you have to like, you got to politely, you like, I can't dip right now. Yeah. I got to hold this together for a minute, but you just kind of like, I can't wait to get out of here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so we all got that in us, you know what I mean? And there's times when you're going to be like, but you know, you hold it together, you know, so.
Yeah.
You know.
Big facts. So, all right. So let's get back on the journey. So you're
like you're at 10, 11. You start rapping with your peoples. And then you start performing at that point, or like when
I started performing when I was about 16. I started doing these open mics that were on the Upper West Side. There was a show called Elevated. And it was like it was in the, they used to teach the ESL classes there. It was on 104th Street and Broadway on the second floor above what's like a Dwayne Reed now. And it was an art gallery. They would have like, you know, all the Graff artists would do, you know, canvases and stuff. They had breakers that would come through. They had MCs, beatboxers. It was like a hip hop festival, but super ill talent in there and people that went on to be famous. So I started in there. That's where I first met the Addams family, which is Cannibal Ox, my brothers who I ended up touring the world with. I met them as part of a larger group called the Addams fam. which was like underground Wu-Tang. There's like 8 of them. They all had completely different styles that were all ill and crazy, super wordy. They're like the original, you know, I don't want to call them nerd rap because it's disrespectful. Like intelligent sci-fi, like
No, I don't think nobody's feeling
Yeah, no.
disrespected. these
yeah,
days.
yeah. But I don't even feel it's because that's not even. I was about to say that, but it's not that.
It's not that.
It's not.
Yeah,
that.
because if it's sci-fi, it's really something more nuanced.
Right.
Nerd.
Rap. It's
especially
that's what you're
when
saying.
we have now a basis for nerd rap because there is a such thing as nerdcore, and we know what it sounds like. We know what they're rapping about, and science fiction is something different.
This is different. This is
different.
that splashed with the hood. It's like Blade Runner in the hood, you know, like
Word.
And so it was like, yeah, just a crazy like, and I remember who used to come through there, Scratch from the Roots, and he used to beatbox, and then he had another MC with him. I forgot who it was, but all type of people be in there, and a lot of the illest Graff writers, and so that was the first, you know, that was the first open mic that I got up at. And back then I was known for graffiti. So I was graph head from, I would say, you know, I was writing rhymes at the same time probably that I got into graffiti, but graffiti was the only thing that I expressed publicly. And I got into just, you know, the art of it and just kind of the mischief of it. You know, it was kind of just exploring the city and the train tunnels. And, you know, I was up a lot and I used to write some one with the letter 1, which evolved of like, you know, that name came from me writing paragraphs in a notebook. I'm like, what's my tag? I had like 10 different tags. My original tag was just a bomb, like an old school cartoon circle bomb with a lit fuse and 3 little like ticks off the lit fuse, right? But then I was like, all right, I was the bomb, but I was like, all right, I need an actual tag that's letters. So I started writing paragraphs, and I'm like, all right, I just need to write a tag. And I was too toy. I was like, I want to have a disguise tag until I get nice. And so I'm writing letters. What letters are the word somewhat? I wrote the word somewhat, and I liked the SOMEWHAT. But then I was like, I didn't like the T on the end. So I left. So my first tag was some WHA ? Somewhat. And that was my tag. And so I used to write that. And then after about 6 months, a year of bombing as somewhat, this weird tag, then I'm like, all right, I had skills. Now I got a hand style for the sum. And I was like, I left the Y out of there and I just put a number 1 on it. And then it was someone. And that's how I really got known. So I had the tag and I had the hand style that just, you know, it was one. I never had to pick the can up. In one brush, I do, you know, some with the number 1 at the end. So I'm someone in the street, probably the biggest street bomber in the Upper West Side for a few years in there, right?
Word.
Everybody sees me everywhere on the street, and I'm up in other boroughs too, but mostly Manhattan. And so going to the open mic, they're like, I was going up with my man Shem, who used to write Kest, and we were, you know, so we're like, what do we call ourselves? With someone and Kest, you know? And they're coming to the stage, someone. It was the worst rap name ever. It's like, it's a cool graffiti name. You know, graffiti names are all like...
Is that Kest that does the
Kest, but he's not, he wasn't a famous writer, you know, he just...
Okay.
He was
because there's the guy now that's pretty known for the, like, what is that? The Best Buy ticket logo looking Kest Gaw, I think
Kest
it is.
Gak or
Kest
whatever.
Gak.
Yeah, yep. Not that. Unless, you know, I haven't heard from this kid in mad long. This kid is actually we used to hang out. There's a documentary called Dark Days that's about the Amtrak tunnels and the mole people that used to live in.
Yes, I've seen that.
So a couple of them were our homies. We used to hang out.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
it's over here that entrance is, right?
So my man, the same
or
kid.
Not over here, here.
Between
We were
73rd Street to 125th Street. That's the tunnels.
Right.
And that was literally, I'd be in there every day from like junior high through high school. I would spend mad time in the tunnels because they weren't like the subway tunnels. Subway tunnels, I've almost died every time I went down there.
Right.
Literally, there's live third rails, 2 trains coming at the same time. You got there's no
Yeah,
room.
yeah,
You got to put your fucking back on the wall, and the train sucks you as it goes by.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're like this
because as the train is going at the speed that it's going, it
literally pulls you. You feel it. You feel
like
it.
You have to have the strength to keep your body back.
Scariest shit in the world,
scary
bro.
as fuck.
The freedom tunnels, and they were named after this writer called Freedom that lived in there and painted murals. He would, So the freedom tunnels were our playground. We would just walk all day.
You actually did the action. That's wild. You did the whole subway thing.
Yeah. I bombed layups. What we would do is I bombed with my man Show TDC, who he actually has a huge graffiti book. I could show you it. He fucking, he's a OG from Long Island. People didn't know who he was. He had wars with like Tats crew and like people that like giant known writers back in the day would be like, where are these guys coming from? And piecing on the trains, like nobody knew because they weren't actually New Yorkers. He's a crazy Irish dude from Long Island, but he was just getting it in. And so he came and just fucking totally was a fucking train king. So I used to go out. He was, an OG to me. So, but we would spot the layups. And so in my era, it was in his era, they would just go to the train yards. Easy, clip a lock or something, but you'd be right in. Like it was nothing. And, maybe you get chased out by a guy with a dog. Sometimes they had, once in a while, a cop would show up, but it was a free-for-all. In my era, all that stuff is the yards on heavy. Because after a certain year, the mayor and the city declared war on it. Realized that
the 80s were no more.
Right, 80s were no more. They realized that writers liked the trains running, so they made a policy decision to never run a train with graffiti on it.
Yeah,
so they made graffiti-proof trains, which still cost like $250,000 to clean.
No, they spent
they just clean them.
Yeah. Well, what you can look at it as is essentially like America's so-called policy of like we don't negotiate with terrorists.
Right. So this is what happened in my era. So this is how we had to bomb trains. So in my era, the everything is locked up. I can't bomb a running train. The only way to do it is to do what's called a motion, which is that's for real crazy motherfuckers. That's too crazy. That's actually waiting till the train pulls up. You run up, and do a little outline. You can't do nothing. You can't do a fill-in or nothing. You can do an outline or a tag. And you just do your outline, and then the train pulls off. And you
ever seen the ones of them doing that out in like Europe?
Yeah, many writers have died doing that.
Yeah. That they do it as a crew at the station.
Oh yeah, well, wow. I'm sure they have. I shouldn't say. I'm sure they do fill-ins. Yeah, there's people who do all type of shit, but
that's modern. That's modern,
right.
And it's a crew, and they're doing it in Europe where their thing is a lot more relaxed. It's different. It's a different circumstance. Totally different circumstance.
So the other way we will bomb trains is in the winter in big snowstorms, the yards, they can't pull the trains in. So they leave layups, what's called a layup. They take, there's mad different tracks in the tunnel. They have some tracks that are dead that they could just leave a train. So you'll be taking a train home and you always, Graff writers, our eyes are peeled in the tunnels. Who's up in here? Oh, this guy got a tag. This guy's been in this tunnel. And if you see a train parked in the tunnel, call your man. Yo, we gotta go tonight, And so we would sneak you go into the closest station, hop in on the tracks, and then but you might have to go a couple blocks through the tunnels. And those are the most dangerous. Those are probably some of the most dangerous moments of my life. Especially when 2 trains are coming at the same time, it's super bewildering. One's coming this way, one's coming that way. They're very close. There's 2 live third rails. The wall is not too far away. So yeah, that And
we risked our lives unnecessarily.
Yeah.
All sorts of ways. But at the same time, that's why I'm not surprised when do you see the videos nowadays of like the kids? Yeah, I see it all the time. Maybe it's because I get like Bronx, social media shit. But like the kids riding the trains.
Right,
You know, on the
They used to do that back then.
They killed. There's been a few deaths, you know, and it's just like, but it's like, yo, I'm pretty sure they were wild deaths back then for us too.
They were definitely.
It's just they don't publicize it as much, you know, like it's just one of those things.
Well, social media kind of allows all the deaths to be documented now.
Yeah, everything is on camera now. Like whatever happened, somebody was recording it, and it's a messed up moment for everybody to witness.
Right.
But yeah, kids were definitely doing that. I mean, I remember what we used to do, which was horrible and foul. But we used to, you know, back when you could ride between cars, you know, we would always, you know, when you're a young, you know, wannabe bad kid, like you just literally ride between. We didn't ride in the train. We were mostly between cars, you know, and we would get in between cars before it even pulled out of the station. But you would take like a newspaper or something, like ball up a newspaper, a magazine, and then wait till the thing starts moving, and then just try to duff somebody in the head with it as it. And like the bigger, thuggier guy you get, the more points it is. Because they will try to chase the train car. You better hope the train car doesn't get stopped in the station or something. But, you know, yeah, that was all type of, you know, oh, man.
I've definitely another first. We've never had a who can hit the gangster off the train.
There's definitely a more lawlessness of like New York City back then. People don't like if you didn't grow up in New York City in the 80s, you just don't understand. I always say that
people say it's getting bad and it's coming back, and it is a little, but it's nothing.
It's nothing like that.
Nothing.
It's nothing like
nothing.
Yeah, and it'll never be nothing.
But there's
like
no
that.
CCTV like that back there, right? Like,
nah, it was nothing.
So like.
And the trains, and you got to understand, the trains' windows were blacked out. I mean, the graffiti actually was type disgusting. Actually, it wasn't like this. You know, some people.
It was everything.
It was everything.
And it was
beautiful and disgusting.
It was everything, and it was all over the whole thing.
Yeah, and the lights would black out. Literally every 30 seconds.
Yep.
2 seconds of blackness, 3 seconds of black. Sometimes 30 seconds of blackness. Like literally, all the pickpocket people would wait, would post up and wait for the light to go out and go in your pocket. Like it was a common thing. When the lights go out, you just, you know, you kind of like,
you
brace up. That's some old New York shit. There's like, you know, you ever seen Jacob's Ladder? You ever seen that?
No,
great
seen
movie.
it. I saw it, but like I don't remember it.
So it has New York trains in the 80s, and it's like, but he comes home from Vietnam, and it's actually like he's going through like a private hell, and it's like demons on the train, but like he's just getting little glimpses of tales, but it's the real train, and the lights are going. It's like it's just that's how it really was. You know what I mean? It's the feeling of being on the subway back in the days.
Yeah, I never realized that there were just these moments of blackness. Like you hear about how dangerous things are, but you know, it's like how people do things isn't often ever talked about.
Yeah. Nah, back then it was different. It was different. And definitely, I don't feel like when people are like, yo, like it's getting so violent, it's getting so crazy. I'm like, I remember how crazy it used to be. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. This feels like, you know, like, nah, yeah, but nah, you know, and it could be worse, I feel like. So I'm just grateful that it's not worse.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's the dichotomy of any dope. It's unfortunate that it seems like, you know, dope cities and like artistic places always seem to be violent. You know, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's something.
I mean,
it goes hand in hand. I guess it's the harsh realities of life create the best artists. Maybe.
Well,
like,
it's also just
like,
major city shit, right?
Yeah.
Like
But
once you
also,
condense a lot of people together, more crime, more everything.
Right.
It's
You
just
know?
facts. And then artsy places have a lot more mental illness issues that are just because like I'm not gonna say it. My theory is most people in art past a certain age are probably a little bit on some kind of a spectrum somewhere. Not everyone, but more, you know, there's a little adjusting that has to happen to like properly function, you know?
Right. Well, yeah, and it's like you got a mushy art brain. Like if you got like, you know, artists are more sensitive. They pick up the pain of the world.
That's why like a room full of rappers is sometimes the room full of the most sensitive people you're ever gonna meet.
Oh
Yeah. Big facts.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because that's the hilarious part of it all. You get older and you realize like how, it's like some of it is there's so much posturing and bullshit, and like it's like I was in a lot of battle rapping too when I was younger, and I was on MTV a few times for it. I was in Blaze magazine for it, like, and then but after a while, sometimes all of it could be like you're like, damn, this is like I'm saying the most hurtful thing about somebody, and then we're gonna shake hands after that, and that's like the fakest shit ever, like it's like. But it's funny. Like there's an art. It's like anything. It's a fucking art. You know what I mean? It's like you can just. There's so many facets of it, right? And there's so many ways that you can take it, and your brain can go off on either route, and you know what I mean? It's like wherever it takes you.
So basically, you started then like. So from like the age of 12 to like 16, you were like doing kind of like musicking. Were you like recording during that period, or was it just writing, practicing?
In that time, I wasn't really. I had no. It was much harder to get access to record. Right. It wasn't like the age of computers opened it up. My first recordings, I was asking people through high school, and then in my junior or senior year of high school, I met through my homie, my man Mike. Who went to LaGuardia with me originally, he introduced me to his boy Snafu, who is a dope producer. He has a beat on my last album to this day, but he was my high school friend, producer, downtown Village kid. He lived, by Washington Square Park. We used to go down there after school, record on his 4-track on cassette tapes. So on a 4-track, literally, and this wasn't even a digital. This is a analog 4-track that's recording on a Maxell tape. So it's 4 tracks, but 2 tracks are the stereo track of the beat. So you have 2 tracks with which to record, a vocal track and a backup track. You know what I mean? So if you wanna do ad libs or you can't double your vocals on the chorus. Because the last line and double the last bar of your verse. We couldn't do punch-ins on that. If you do a punch-in, it sounds like a totally new thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's no such thing. So we had to start, but in a way, it was like rap boot camp because it made me realize, I can't write just any way I want. And that's when you first start writing, like you start writing more like the cycle of writing I went through. It's like when I found I could rhyme a lot of words, I started getting like, I went full nerd rap with it and, try to put as many, you're just trying to stack the giantest rap structure, but it's like you're fighting the beat. You're putting so much shit in there. And then after a while, you learn to like kind of ease back and just, use it as you need it, but be tasteful. I forgot where we were going with this point.
You're recording on your 4-track.
Oh, on the 4-track. Yeah. So that just really taught us like, you couldn't do a punch-in. You had to just write. It was like, I had to write stuff that actually fit, that I could spit in one take, so it actually made
that would be like, if I understand or remember, it's one take the whole song, right?
No, well, you could stop, but like, we would generally do a verse and then do the chorus, because every time you come in, it's going to be like a different, you could hear, if you try to punch between bars, you would hear there's like a giant crackly sound of you coming in. So it's like, and we were mixing on this little thing that had that has like a couple of slide bars. It's not like, and you're doing it in live time onto another cassette tape. So you have your master cassette that it was recorded to, and then when you mix it down, you're remembering it, make notes at 3:02, turn this down. And you just like,
right.
And you always fucking something up. And then, but it's like you do it 5 times and get the best one you can. And that was the song, And so and they were really rough. And it's funny, I took I had like my first 50 songs I recorded like that. And then I remember when Pro Tools 1 came out, my older brother, I have an older half brother that didn't grow up in the house with me, lived in California, drummer, sick musician. I went out to stay with him when I was like 18 and took all my 4-track recordings, had him borrow my boy's 4-track, put it on a plane, just so I could dump it into Pro Tools 1, the original Pro Tools.
That's crazy.
And that one was trash, but it was my brother knew it was the wave of the future. Everybody knew. They were like, I'm gonna get nice, and they like,
you know when you pay attention to the people who know those things,
right? So we dumped in all those tracks, and then we actually we mixed them and cleaned them up. So I had a little CD of like cleaned up, you know, of the best like 5 songs of that 50, you know, that I remastered or whatever. And then recently, during the pandemic, I went, you know, we just killing time. I found all my old tapes. I was like, these are like they're limited time on Earth. I went to PF Cutting's crib out in East New York where I record, and I was just like, yo, PF, I gotta dump in. Let's dump in all these. So I dumped in like all my old high school records. Some of them were. So it's funny because I had to let PF hear all these things, and some of these are like, you know, some of them he's like, yo, giving me props. You had skills even back then. And some of them I listen to and they're impressed. And some of them I'm like, ooh, I still want to save it for the history, but for me to listen to. But it's like, you're like, oh, that's a joke right there. That's not serious. Oh man, like that's that. But it's part of the process.
But like, still, like, hats off to you for having done all that by that point, right? Like, because we're not talking about like. Even like the people who grew up in like the 90s, 2000s had a much easier time with this.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like you're saying
it was a total shift right about then. Yeah. Where it became if you're computer savvy, you can do everything on a computer. Oh, the computer is the main thing. That's all you have to have now. And then like a little preamp, a good mic, you know, for like $400 or $500 plus the computer, you're set to make music that nobody in the world can tell you is not professional. You know, nobody's even like, you know, of even down to the pop stars. What you hear is 50% big studio shit and 50% Pro Tools or whatever, you know, Reason, Logic, home setups, computer setups, because they always do 2 mixes. And sometimes the big giant $1 million analog studio board mix wins. And sometimes the home mix wins, and it's really 50. It's like a coin flip.
Yeah.
So half the shit you're hearing
definitely is,
and all of our shit on our level is the computer shit, but nobody knows it's professional.
I mean, like if your engineer is good and understands how to deal with the environment you're recording in, and that you're recording in a good environment, which isn't a costly environment. Right. It's just you have to understand the basics of sound treatment and like.
A good engineer is all you need. It's somebody with the knowledge. That's it. Yeah.
A half decent mic. Like people be getting away with good recordings on like $200 mics. Yeah. And like, most people can't tell the difference, especially after Spotify and all that processes your shit again.
Yeah, your shit's gonna get squashed, and you know if it's turned to an MP3, it's like the
motherfuckers will have like $12 earbuds.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's not, right.
Because because when you make music, like you don't buy cheap headphones. It's like that's like I can't have bad headgear. Right. And then you forget that most people in the world do not prioritize earphones like that. Right, They're like, nah, the $50 ones is okay by me. And you're like,
I mean, that's who the majority of like the people are in the world. They're like listening on shitty headphones.
Nah, it's like you have to do the iPhone 6 test. That's what I call it.
Yeah, I do iPhone tests and that's it. But it's because, you know, it's one of those things where it's just like Android doesn't require a test, you know? iPhone with all their specialized, you know, settings requires a test.
But even then, it's just like you have to make sure that like 9 times out of 10, especially in today's era, if you're showing somebody your song, how are you showing it to them? You're pulling out your phone and you're playing it on that speaker. Right. So it don't matter how it sounds in like fucking proper headphones. What really matters is that you can sell somebody on your song on a shitty cell phone.
Right. Yeah. Totally. I mean, it's a new world, but it's funny how it's like you upgrade and downgrade at the same time. We got the technology, but downgraded to MP3s, where we used to be playing music with literally more information in there, a fuller sound. And now we have the tech. Originally, those files were chosen because they couldn't fit regular song files on a computer. You'd have 10 songs on a computer before. Now they can kind of, But it's like, that's already the standard. We got a shitty standard. It don't
We're
matter.
gonna just keep on running with that.
Yeah.
Nah, absolutely. There's a lot of things that right now we're at the precipice of where it's just like, yo, is this really gonna be like the standard that we're gonna like?
The Media Shower. That was one of my albums. Me and my man Dub Sonata 10 years ago put out an album called Media Shower. And it was kind of like that, as a play off that. And like the cover is like me and him with umbrellas chilling, but it's like
A shower of CNN and
no, it's like old TVs, radios, phonographs, like all different forms of media are raining on us.
right.
Word,
So we're
word.
like, you know, we're here just like, but there's like people dead all over, you know what I mean? Like,
Word. So
Yeah, you're like 18 in Cali, and you're recording everything in the Pro Tools.
yeah.
and so this means that you're how deep in now? How many projects in are you at this point?
So so I used to make tapes and sell them and just dub tapes and like draw a cover and you know, maybe there's like 100 of those that got circulated, you know, that would, I guess, technically be my first thing, you know, and the group I had with my man and me, my man, Nick Andors, who was, back.
And yes, by the way, that definitely does count.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
100 copies is
All right, so
that's
yeah.
a lot back then. When
Right.
you're
It
doing
might-
something independently,
Right.
and like there's no
Well,
major
most
label,
of my-
It might have
like
been-
that's
Right.
way more than a demo, right? A lot of people just had a demo,
Right.
and that was it. And a demo was not like mass produced.
Right.
At max, it would get bootlegged amongst your friends, and maybe you got cool enough that like outside of your friend groups, like it started, you know, you were popping
Right.
enough, and that might get bootlegged more, but like really that was very rare, and you know, it was a demo, and that's it.
Right.
You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
I just thought-
So 100 copies is very much so like a legitimate project.
Yeah. All right. So
And like, while I know it's not the same era, I'm doubtful that like most people out there could sell 15 copies of an album right now.
right. Yeah. I mean, it was you know, it was just like you know, our friend, whoever we saw, we kind of pushed it on, and then we had our extended, you know, my man's little. I've met people in modern times. I met a friend of a friend a couple years ago who was like, "Yo, wait, you're Double A.B?" He's like, "I have your tape." Like he pulled it out and so he, you know, came
Right.
to his crib and pulled it out. He's like, "Yeah," and it's my man's little brother sold it to him, signed as me.
Wait,
It wasn't
did
me.
you? It wasn't.
It wasn't me, but it was my album. It was the same album circulating. He had like a funny nut, and they were like little like funny pranksters anyway. It was probably like a joke to him, you know. But and he made his own cover for it and everything. Like,
Word.
so each one had its own unique piece of art attached to it,
Right.
which is so rare. That's like the illest drop
That's
now.
dope.
You
So-
know, it's like
so-
now people would do
Big
a fly
flex.
like
Big flex.
big flex,
Well,
right?
so you back then, you had people taking your album and bootlegging it with unique art, impersonating you.
Right.
Bro, that is a flex.
Super flex.
I don't know how many people have that problem.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool. Shout out to Willie and Jimmy Snafu. Yeah, so that was my first so that's technically the first music I put out, you know, very small reach though. And then I put out it really wasn't until 2002 when I had been shopping my stuff, so I was talking to I did the Blaze battles, which were big. They for Blaze magazine, which was a subsidiary of Vibe, but it was short-lived. It only lasted for a couple of years, maybe.
Did you do the first year that PH and RZA and Capadonna were on?
Yep.
Word.
I did the second one. I wasn't in
Oh,
the
the
very
year
first.
after.
So did I do 2 or 3?
Because I think Capadonna, RZA, and
They were in the
PH
first
were in
year.
the first year.
Yeah.
And the
PH
first year
early.
was
PH
first year was
in-
on HBO, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that was a little later. That was maybe like that was the end of it, basically, when HBO was like the last hurrah of the mag.
Word.
Yeah. So I did I think it must have lasted maybe 2 years because I did the year anniversary one. The first one I did was in Tramps, and I battled C-Ray's Walls,
Word.
and it was like one of the most decisive victories in my whole battle career. The crowd went nuts. and fucking um Breeze Everflowing won it. Before that, the very first one, it was Young Z and Pre the Honey Dark in the finals, and we were in the second one. And PH was in the same one I was in, I believe, and that's how I met PH, and that's how me and PH became cool.
Word.
And I went back to do a grind. That the last battle I did was a grind time for PH, because PH used to hit me like every 6 months on the dot.
What event? Because I'm like, I was battling for him back then. So
a grind time in Greenpoint, in this tiny little clothing shop in Greenpoint.
oh, that was probably the one that Zilla and DNA battled at, or
Maybe Swave was in there with me.
maybe that was the one that I'm not sure, but yeah, that I already know.
Yeah. So that and you know, PH had been like, you know, hitting me up, and I kind of had left him behind, like, because you know that was, and mind you, the battles we were doing in the Blaze battles were different than the modern.
Different format.
Yeah, different format.
It was freestyle more so.
Right.
Or,
Now it's funny because I started when we would have rap battles in high school. It was more like the modern thing where it's like you come tomorrow in the lunchroom. I'll come with a rhyme and you come with a rhyme, and then we're going to do it, and we're going to see what the crowd reaction is.
Right.
But, you know, then it became, in that era, I was doing the freestyle battles that were like mostly freestyles. So you'd mix your written bars in with it, but you had to look like a freestyle.
Yeah. It sounded and felt more freestyle. And that was what we were all geared to doing more.
But I kind of liked it. It was because even though it was so, it allowed you to like dap up your partner more easy, because it was just like you snapping on even break. You're just breaking on what a man looks like in the moment, you know, in his gear. It wasn't as deep as like the battles get, where, you know, I remember to this day doing that one, and I battled a kid named Friday the 13th. Shout out to him, a kid from
kind of fire name.
Yeah, dope name, right? How was there not, you know, more rappers trying to be a Friday the 13th? But he was dope.
Bad SEO value in the modern
but he was
market.
a kid from Rhode Island, and so, you know, immediately PF starts sending me his Facebook link. He's telling me like, if I'm like, all right, but what you telling him about me, bro? Like, I'm like, what? You know what I mean? Like, what? And so, you know, and it was funny, and then I was like, but what do I really have on him? And you know, and so it was like, you know, he's a skinny dude from Rhode Island, so I had mad skinny jokes.
Skinny about Rhode Island.
Rhode Island
that's
jokes.
It.
Like, that's it. You know, and so
what else were you supposed to do?
Yeah. And then you know, I, you know, a bunch of like, you know, kind of I OD'd on both of us actually did OD on the gay homophobic jokes, which are less. They didn't age as well, right?
Yeah.
Back then it was more a thing, but now, you know, I see it now and I'm like, all right, that was distasteful. But like, so, but you know, and that's even the judges even then were like, that was like a little too much of that. And so, but it was like, what do you say? Those were kind of just inane joke. Like if I make a gay, it's almost like, you know, this dude's not gay. I'm just emasculating you. It's a generic.
Yeah.
It's a generic emasculation.
Yeah.
Because this is a contest, right?
Yes.
And it's almost a way that's almost more lighthearted, even though it's not. You know, if you're obviously the gay dude watching it taking offense is different. But, but it wasn't meant as that. So, So anyways, like, you know, but yeah, so it was like, I just, after a while, it was like taking the time to, that month leading up to it, I'm just, all my bars are like focused on another rapper in a negative way. And it's like, I had to just study, and I can't make those rhymes songs, or that didn't become anything, you know what I mean? It was that day.
Right.
It's cool. I mean, you know, but so that's kind of my infatuation with battling fell out in the new era kind of with that. And I was just like, and I respect it and I love it too. Like, you know, shout out to my man Swave, who's one of the most incredible, you know, battlers out there still doing it. And, but I appreciate the art, but yeah, it just made me kind of be like, all right, like I'd rather, it's just like, it started to epitomize like everything is like, it was just too deep. And I saw who did it. I think, in that same battle, the last battle I did, I think this guy Cortez came, or was it him? Or it was somebody that was battling on that night, dissed their opponent and found a picture of their opponent
Oh, the one with Illegal.
Was that it?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They found him in like a dress or something online, and he printed a fucking, and then he had a. So he at the moment that he hit the bar, he just takes the veil off the picture, and it's like this dude in a dress. It's like it was like our version of the Jay-Z Summer Jam screen, basically. Yeah. And it was like, I was like, oh, it was so brutal seeing it live. I was like, yo. But I was also like, damn, you spent like 85 at Kinko's. You see?
Yeah.
Does that cheating at work?
He did spend like 85 at Kinko's.
Yeah, you spent 85 at Kinko's. Like, I don't know how it fit. Was it fair? I don't know, but it worked. Yeah. I guess it's a war. Anything's fair, and it was like one of the most brutal things I had seen in the battle up to that point. I was like, "Yo, this guy brought he brought visual like now it's all been done to this point. Tag team,
it's expanded.
It's such a whole world.
I think that all was born right. Like the switch actually happened. I think, in my opinion, around Fight Club, which was in between the Blaze battles. And Grind Time.
Fight Club is what made
Fight Club,
it all
because when I went to Fight Club, I remember I freestyle battled my trial battle to get on the show, and I was roasting dude, and I had the cameraman laughing. Yeah. And afterwards, International P came over to me. He was like, yo, don't ever come in here freestyling again. And I was like, what? Wow. I was like, son, I just killed it, though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I knew I killed it. Like, because you know you kill it if the cameraman is laughing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Cameraman is laughing. That's it.
Let me do my thing.
I had the cameraman laughing, and his own peoples was laughing at him and themselves, because I was making fun of him and his people standing behind him. And they were laughing at what I was saying. Right. So that's how I knew I was killing it. And for International P to say that afterwards, I was just like, damn. And I thought about it, I was like, damn, freestyling is dead for me. Because like I had already gotten established into like a role of like, yo, I don't really freestyle at the studio. It's paid time. I'm paying for this time. Yeah. Like I'm not here to play games, you know what I mean? Like I'm coming with a planned song and a planned, everything. Right. So like really, it's not like I'm freestyling here. I'm not using freestyling here. And then battles where I was still using freestyling, I'm not using it there. So it became one of those, like, I guess when like I'm with my peoples and we start, freestyling, but then like that becomes less and less as you get older. Right. And it just became one of those things where it's just like, it's just the art that just died off for me. You know what I mean?
It's hard.
It's a blade that I didn't keep sharp.
Right. I feel the same way. It's funny because I feel the same way. And literally last night I went to film Rap is Out of Control with DJ Eclipse and Riz. And I've been on Eclipse's show a bunch of times. He used to have halftime at NYU. I used to go all the time. And I hadn't been to the serious one in years that he has. And so and then obviously was shut. He had no guests for 2 years during COVID or whatever. He just started having guests back. And he invited me. He just hit me out the blue. I got the new record unpromoted, Perfect. And it's with Big Zoo and Propane from EO Dub. Oh, cool. But I think, so now in retrospect, I know Eclipse was I think he wanted us to freestyle on the radio. And so we basically, we always do a freestyle at the end, but it's sometimes like it's like up to you. You spit some bars. We want to hit some bars. And I usually do like a little, I always blend it. I am known for going off the top, so I like to incorporate off the top stuff. But I like to do like a big meat and potatoes or something I wrote, because that's like, and then like you said, it's a muscle. And lately, I'm more chilling in the you're not flexing the freestyle muscle.
If you don't keep that blade sharp, it's not gonna cut when it's time to.
Right. And I kind of I just want to it doesn't freestyle or written doesn't matter much to me. I just want to come off good.
Right.
Either way, it's
more important to show appreciation for what you're doing, and therefore have something written and prepared.
Right. So I go in with two of the best freestylers, in the game, and Eclipse is like, all right, at the end, this is what I want. You know, you guys, I'll give you like, you spend one verse or whatever, but he's like, I really want you to just go 4-bar freestyles. And it's like, can you do that? I was like, all right, man. You know what I mean? Like, I had to tell him no.
Yeah.
And we did it and it came off. But so right before, was that?
That's actually the most ideal circumstance for somebody who hasn't been freestyle.
Exactly.
It's like you got 4 quick.
You got 4.
You got 4. You can figure,
4.
even if you slouch through 4, you can slouch through 4 and get away with it.
I got away with it.
And you could be a palate cleanser in between 2 guys who are really going at it, right?
And so I don't think I think I did enough not even to be a palate. Nobody knew. I think it went smooth.
It sounded like you've been freestyling since back in the days.
Inwardly though, I know I could have spit better. You know what I mean? Because it's like you inwardly know, like especially for me off the top, it's like it's hard to turn on. Also in that situation too, like. 2 hours of sitting here talking, mic break every half hour. They're playing music. It's very, kind of corporate. You're not, there's a headphone here. You're not really like, it's not like you're jamming with your boys and smoking an L and the beat comes on. And also,
then you jump in when you want it and you're hungry for it.
It's like boxing.
Right.
If I get in the ring and spar, you know what the worst torture is? Running in the gym late and somebody's waiting for you to spar and just doing 5 minutes of jump rope, but not getting, I need 20 minutes before I get in the ring with anybody. And if I get in the ring after 10 minutes, I start, that first round is torture. And it's the same almost with rap. It's like, but I could fudge it more with rap and nobody knows.
I know.
But it's like, you're not, if you don't have the sweat going, it's not going to be, it's hard. You know what I mean?
We were
jump
in the conversation that we were just having, I was citing how like, as I get older, I feel like I see the rhythm of life more. I feel the rhythm of life more. I know the ins and I know when to jump in, when to not. I know when to slow up, when to speed up, right? And general for life, period. And I was saying that it feels probably akin to what like a boxer feels like when they're in the ring and they got their rhythm. And you know what I mean? It's like you can see the punches coming. You know what I mean? You feel it in your body. Your body's moving in a way that it's one of those things.
It's muscle memory, right?
And you also can't rush that type of shit.
Yeah.
You can't rush it, and you can't it's looking crazy out there.
I'm sure y'all heard that one.
Yeah,
I don't know how much y'all heard on this one, but
I was
like the building lit up back there like it was daytime for a quick second.
Wow.
Yeah, it went blue. But so, it's just one of those things where like, if you see a rhythm of light, and I'm sure that like boxing is also like the same type of thing where like you have that. And so you don't want to go in rushed, not giving yourself your proper, the way that you know to enter the ring the right way. You rush anything in life is usually not going to come out right.
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 And there's something to be said about just like starting. It's like anything. You gotta do your stretch and get into it. It's like, and there's a way to jump into it if you could just jump. And I think guys like Zoo and Pro are so good at jumping because they've got it to a science where they know how to go into chorus mode, and it actually helps when you stop, because there's going to be a point where you're getting less clever in a set. You're not going to freestyle the best forever. You're going to go through a little lull and come back, right? And
it's
the bars, even if you're great, you'll make something that rhymes and fits, but it's just not. It's not the greatest.
At one point or another, all the greatest, the literal greatest freestylers have those things where it's just like,
the greatest writers. I mean, it's hard to even just keep writing stuff that's good. To make every bar clever and good and resonate with human beings is not and not say some generic cliche has been said a million times shit is actually hard. So if you can do it off the cuff or written, it's a thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so, but doing
it off the dome, like the only people I know who can really like, do song quality off the domes are the people who probably rap 5 hours a day off the dome.
Right.
It's like you get to that point where it's like, just in your shit. And so at the end of it, that's what Eclipse said. He's like, I brought you guys here specifically because you guys are my favorite freestylers in rap.
Word.
I was like, yo, I'm in this room like and I know when I'm in my zone I'm nice, but it's funny because I was going there not wanting to freestyle. And I was like, I don't even want to freestyle.
You were like, I got this written, I got you.
Right.
I came prepared for you.
Yeah. And then like,
he's like,
get
away all that prepreparation. Give me whatever you have right now.
Yeah. He definitely wanted. He's like, okay, get your writtens out the way and now spit some freestyles. Like, but you know, it's like, are you gonna like? That's dope. There's somebody that's, you know, of that caliber and has a dope show and been doing it for so many years would think that, you know, of me, I'm like, yo, all I could do is take it as a compliment and be like, hey, that's in my chamber and hey, that's dope. And I know it's funny too, because it's like, I've been like less confident on the freestyle shit lately, but it made me be like, all right, I got it in me. And now I know.
Now you just like, I just got to rededicate myself. It's just literally that. You just got to sit there and sharpen the blade again.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
You know, it'll come back. It's like riding a bike.
Right. Exactly. And there'll be a moment, like if I'm, you know, it's like, you know, I don't know. You know, sometimes there's certain moments where it's easier to access it. You know what I mean? Right. And that's like, you know. But,
that's fair.
Yeah.
So, Blaze battles, after the Blaze battles, where were you at? Like, where were you? Matter of fact, during the Blaze battles, where were you at in the musical career? Like, what are we talking about? How many albums in are we?
I was pre-album. So that's why I brought them up, because my man, who actually was my first housemate, was my homie Noah Callahan Bever, who went on to, you know, he was working, he originally was like an intern with Ego Trip magazine. Then he worked with Blaze. He's the one who got me in. I got into the first Blaze as an alternate, and off of 1 week preparation, he's like, hey, you want to come down and be, I could get you in there, but I don't know if you'll battle, but just come just in case somebody doesn't show up. And I was like, I showed up and they're like, jump in. And I, you know, I had like one good, if I had more time, I could have made it through I feel like I could have won that at that point, you know, but it wasn't, I only had a certain amount of like, you know, stacked ammo, but, you know, so I ended up, he was an A&R in that era for a brief time with Stimulated, what was it called? I guess it was Dante Ross's label. But Stimulated Dummies was his production team, but I think the label was called something else. I'm trying to remember the name. But they had a few rap acts. They had Cellar Dwellers and Casual on his second run around, and they kind of scooped up a lot of those like middle kind of underground rappers of that era, late 90s. And so I ended up in the studio with Operator M's, who back then was DJ M's, who used to be, I think he used to work at Death Row and Interscope, and you know, he'd been in the game forever, had some LA experience as well as some New York, Bronx hip hop OG, and I would go to his crib in like Kingsbridge and make demos on the weekends. And so I was kind of like hoping to get signed by them, but they never offered me a deal or anything. But I was kind of like,
it's always weird when you think something's gonna, like, it feels natural. Right. Everybody here clearly feels like, and it doesn't happen.
I'm waiting for somebody to put me out. That's what I'm waiting. I'm like, I'm dope. I've shown I'm dope. I've been in these big battles, and you know, and sign me up, you know. And then I was in the first big MTV battle. Well, first I was in the Direct Effect battles, and then I was in
with Zoo.
After Zoo, I battled Breeze, and Breeze beat me. Yep. Right. And I was, you know, trying to dethrone Breeze, and
all these names are all.
It was 3 people.
This is all Perspectives guest list alumni.
After 8 Mile, they did a real battle, and I was in that one too. And they had a riot outside in Times Square before it went down, just for the sign up. It was insane. Yeah, bro. That shit was crazy, bro. Fucking. But the first one they did, they're like, oh yeah, battle. Yeah, battle of the bands. Yeah, you 3 guys battle. It's like, no, you fucking idiots. There's a thing called a rap battle. They didn't know. You know, MTV was like, the 3 of you will battle, 30 seconds each. And, you know, so that's what it was. And so, you know, it was even like, you know, I had to kind of, you know, try to like, I definitely, you know, came at Breeze very hard because I, you know, but he had the after me slot. So it's like, he got me, you know what I mean? But that's my man. Shout out to Breeze.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and I remember, you know, Poison Pen in the front row, like amping the fucking audience up, you know, who's my other homie. Now, you know, but back then I'm like, these motherfuckers, like, you know? And so, yeah, that was, I wasn't putting music out until I finally put music out myself in 2002. And that was my first album. And so I put that out and then, yeah, I just started, you know, selling CDs kind of out the trunk, if it were. But, you know, we got on I was fucking with Vast and Vortal from Cannibal Ox, and they had a lot of good things going. They put out an album in 2001, I believe, Cold Vein, that's like every time Vibe, Herb, any of these magazines do a 100 best like rap list, the best indie rap record, they have like the title, you know, as far as like, you know, the people are concerned, obviously. And all these titles are like, you know, whatever. But they got like this fucking very popular record. So, you know, I was lucky enough to just tour the world with my homies doing shows and stuff. And as that was getting popular, we got like, you know, we got slots like opening for Jizza and Wu-Tang and got on some bigger tours that had, you know, bigger sponsors. And I would sell a lot of albums, of my first album, just it's funny, based on like material that I had later, but it's like, I didn't, you know, it's like all I had was this album, and I ended up just selling a shitload of them, you know, or shitload to me, a few thousand copies, but, you know, but it taught me that being an opener on a tour, if you have a good stage show, you can smash the sales of the people you opening for because nobody has your shit. And especially back then, the mystery was still a little more like, it was a little more unique to just, where am I going to find this person? He's here. He has his album. I need it now.
Right.
You know? And, I just sold a shitload of CDs on tour. It was great. You know, I would make like, you know, I would make whatever show money. And then you know, every night at least, you know, an extra 300 to 500 in fucking sales. Like fucking awesome. And so it was going very good. And then I saw a hit when the fucking, when in like the 2008 market crash, our shows like slowed down, like on some just full economy, like indie musician blues.
Right.
Like we were doing tours like a few times a year, and that's when we made our real money. You know, we do like a month-long tour like 3 times a year and just, you know, bang out shows, you know, bang out 30 shows, you know, across the country.
Right.
And like
usually pays for bills for a few months.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and then, you know, I was doing my other thing on the side, and it was good, you know, but like, you know, that shit really, that was like a setback to me. And then, you know, I kind of got discouraged for a bit, but then, you know, I've had waves with being in love with putting out music and not. And now I'm on the current wave of like, I wasted so much time being like emo about my music and my place in the music world. And it's like, you have no control over it. You got to just say your piece as an artist and let your art speak for itself and just keep putting your art out. It doesn't matter. If it finds an audience, it'll find an audience. It might be when you're fucking dead.
It might be.
You might be a Van Gogh. But if you know you're dope, you know, Van Gogh knew enough to put paint to canvas, and it was dope enough that a whole school of motherfuckers love him. Is he a better artist than Picasso? Who's better? That's a matter of taste. They're both dope.
Yeah, it's all a matter of opinion.
Right. Picasso was paid in his lifetime.
Right.
Picasso would go to a cafe, do a doodle on a napkin and pay for his meal like that. You know what I mean? And they'd be like, they'd really be coming off more than him. You know?
Yeah, big fact.
I went to a gallery in San Francisco one time, and it was all doodles, Picasso and shit like that. That you know, little, and they were selling for like, the cheapest Picasso doodle you're gonna buy is like $250,000, right? You're not spending less than like, like come on, bro.
All right, so now we're like probably
I don't know. Are we in the 2010s?
2010
Yeah,
shit.
now we're pushing along. 2010s. So yeah, 05, I put out a mixtape called Blazed and Amused that had my man Don Pacino from Killer Army, Wu-Tang,
Word.
Killer B on it. And Vast and a bunch of other folks that I fuck with. Then I put out The Diesel, which is another album of mine in 08. That was my next big project. And then Media Shower, which I told you, which was like 2012. So, and a Media Shower I signed with Man Bites Dog Records down in Virginia. And I got introduced to them through my partner Vast, who put an album out with them. They used to do Roc Marciano. They were most famous because Roc Marciano was on the label.
Right?
Yeah. And so, I got, I got a song and video with Marcy from then, and which was big, and we shot that out in fucking in LA in Hollywood at the at Shamrock Social Club. You know what that is? It's a famous tattoo spot. It's where Biggie got his last tattoo the night before he died, and
Wait, in LA?
Yeah.
Nah, I've never. I mean,
we shot a whole video. They let us. We showed up. We were supposed to shoot on a roof or some shit that like the cameraman used to have access to this lot, but we were kind of like not supposed to be there, and it got shut down that day. And we were actually with Apathy too, the rapper, and he was like, "Yo, I know them over at," and shout out to Apathy for this because we had no place to shoot. And Apathy was like, "Yo, I know them at Shamrock Social Club. Let's go. I'm gonna call them. Yeah, they're cool with it. Go in. They're tattooing people. He got a tattoo. They're giving him a tattoo, like some boating shit, because it's like some symbol of him and his pops. Like always loved the ocean. He's getting a boat tattoo. It's me and Roc Marciano smoking an L and drinking Henny and fucking and rapping and doing this video right in front of him and shooting pool like while they're fucking have a regular work day. It was fucking great. And just, you know what I mean? So that all worked out. But yeah, so I started fucking with Man Bites Dog Records, and and that album we put a lot of effort into. We got some good guests on it. We got Roc Marciano, we got Sean Price, Scram Jones, Rhyme Fest, Cannibal Ox, Evidence. It's just and we had some really good videos.
Indie scene.
Yeah, exactly. It was like an indie star-studded kind of like thing that we did, and it was dope, and it was just so. Actually, we about to put out the 10-year edition that has remixes and alternate versions. So we got an alternate verse from Rhyme Fest, and I had a different verse that I put on initially. So we put that on. We got remixes from Bronze Nazareth for the Sean P joint and the Evidence joint. Put that on. We got a Blockhead did a remix of the Roc Marciano joint. Put that on. So we have a whole alternate, and we calling it alternate media because one is Media Shower. So we got the alternate media album. Drop it on the 10-year anniversary just as a little little nod to. But that it's funny that one. So then after that I put out True Romance, which I dropped in 2014 on Valentine's Day, which was actually the day my great aunt died, right before her 100th birthday. She didn't quite make it to 100. She was like 99 3/4.
That's 100.
Right, that's 100. But it just so then I didn't release music for a long time. I was just in a kind of depression, funk with the music, and just kind of bitter about some of it, and just I just kind of and depressed on my own shit. Like even like I said, my aunt was like my best friend and like spiritual guru. She had a real like channeling of inner peace and a way to achieve it, which I try to emulate as much as I can. And it's funny because her brother, my great uncle, who I wasn't as cool with, was an actual guru who has like continues to have followers. This thing called the Sedona method. It's a self-help thing. But I swear to God, he wrote about it and got rich about it. I think it was my aunt's like personal philosophies, but she was like the wise fool she didn't need to have any of that.
Care.
She's like, I don't care. I travel the world. I have a nice crib.
Yeah.
I don't need to be rich. I don't care about things. I care about travel and, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so she just lived a fly life of non-attachment and happiness.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And he kind of blew up off it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, you know, her dying I expected it my whole life. She was 65 when I was born.
Right.
So it's like me getting tight with her was like, she was grooming me for her to, she's like, I'm going to die one day. Don't be sad. You know, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm like, you know, even knowing that, there's nothing that could prepare you. And I expected her to die way earlier. We're like, holy shit, she just keeps going. And so then the last couple years, she had like a little stroke. It got hard and she had to have an attendant she never left her crib, luckily, but had to have the home attendant in there taking kids. She was, you know, she was used to being like independent her whole life. So she was ready to go, you know, but you know, it was still traumatic to lose her, you know what I mean? And it put me into like a multiple long depression, just trying to like function without that stability and that like key member. Like she was in my whole family, everybody's best friend is probably her, you know what I mean? Like everybody would say the same, like, you know, who do you tell your secret? It would be her, you know what I mean? Like, and she'll talk to everybody and just has a way.
Everybody's confidant.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just like a big kind of like thing. But, and then in a way though, it was even iller for me because I was the one that was like her and my uncle's kid in a way. Right. And so like they molded me the most. I came out like them. Right. My younger brother, he's kind of like more like my pops. He belongs more to my mom and pops. He's like, you know, I'm kind of more like my aunt and uncle, you know, so.
Nah, I can feel it. I came out more like my uncle.
Right. There you go. Somebody in the end.
Yeah.
It's always easier to relate to the uncle too, anyway, you know.
My little sister came out more like my mom. My older brother came out more like my dad, you know. That's how it usually is.
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
It gets spread out. It's not everybody's gonna be mom and dad. Somebody's gonna end up being like the cool uncle.
Right.
Protege.
Right.
Yeah, I was the cool uncle protege because my uncle was like the weed smoking. You know what I mean? Like the first movie he put me to watch was Warriors.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
You got
like
the uncle that showed you Warriors. That's your man for life.
For life.
That's amazing.
Yeah, facts, dude.
Right. So
when did this like comic book song Lyric Vision, I think you call it?
So Lyric Vision is the actual and I was trying to think of my own phrase. I'm so glad you said that. I was on the radio last night. Like, what is the name of my own shit? I couldn't remember Lyric Vision. I invented it. I'm like, what do I call this shit again? What fucking bullshit term did I say? Fucking Lyric Vision. Yes, but that's the concept of nobody really did it. Like, I can't believe nobody did this before me, but nobody really did this. And they will be doing this. But it's word for word. Every word in this comic is just the lyrics of the song. I make a song that tells a story, and then you just read along with the lyrics. And so, you know, you could literally play the song and read along, or, you know, read it and then listen, or I have all the art animated as a fully animated video as well, along with the music. So you can scan the QR code on the back or in the inside flap, and it'll take you right to the website, and you get to see the video.
Links below. It'll be linked below.
Yeah.
We're gonna
in these links.
And we'll get any
for the record,
any media that you have that you want to share. We'll include it in the video.
Here's a bunch of my music on here. Actually, I have the back of it has a bunch of my albums on there. You know, so yeah. So
honestly, it's a really cool concept. Like I listened to the song, and then I read the comic after. And that was cool because like I just heard the song and like I didn't realize you could just download the comic. I'll say word.
Right.
So then I'm like, okay, he said it was gonna be, and then I'm like looking at each panel and I'm like, say fucking word. It's like bar for bar.
Bar for bar.
And then like it's visually representing and adding this layer to the story.
Right.
Where
You
it's
get a
like
different visual. That's why like there's a specific part in the end, like with the feds kicking the door down of the parents that my man added with the visuals that's happening while the dude's giving the speech in the end. So it's not gonna make sense if you don't know the story, but like there's a whole element that happens while somebody's giving a speech, and you could read the speech as a speech but you're seeing
something that's not being spoken about.
That's not being spoken. He added something that happened in the story, by just in visual panels, right? And so it's crazy that it's like it shows how each medium is its own thing and brings extra dimensions, right? So, but it's beautiful. It's part of the beauty of it, and it's just like it's so crazy.
But
like
even like looking at the music video version compared to the comic, it's not the same experience.
It's not the same experience at all because reading is a different type of. It's different than a quick rapid fire bar pace. Rapid fire bar pace is going to tell you the story in as quickly as you can get it, right? And you can absorb it that way. And if you pay attention, you'll get it. But this way allows you to really take the time and absorb and get and fully understand the story. And that's what I was trying to go. Like I wrote it, I write these, and I have, now mind you, I only have one issue printed, but I have a dozen of these recorded.
Right.
So they're basically ready to go.
Wait, you have how many printed?
I just have one issue.
One issue.
One issue.
But you have 12
songs that are in the so far
ready for
art treatment, right?
Well,
and I have a order, and it's gonna be like the most of these, except there's only gonna be you're only gonna realize it's all in the same world. And there will be, it's like Pulp Fiction or something. You're going to realize they're characters that are related to each other, that are siblings, that have different stories, that actually connect. And there'll be stuff like that in it as it expands.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Work. And so, but I want it to be, like, my goal is movie level. I think of these as movies or like an HBO show, and that's how I write them. I'm seeing them more as the comic than a rhyme. I don't want to use too much slang in a rhyme. I want it to be something that you can read on a paper and understand universally. Somebody that doesn't understand hip hop needs to be able to read it as a comic and say, oh, okay.
That's what I was thinking too, right? Like it takes your ability as a writer and it just transcends the music, right? Like you could, because your song's actually, the twist at the end of your song, it's really interesting. Like
Thank you.
I wasn't expecting that. I don't know if you want to be spoiled.
No, don't. I mean,
maybe not. Maybe not.
Maybe people should go. Let's leave him a product to sell.
No, so I'm saying,
people.
like that's, it was really cool. And then, like it works just as a standalone story because there's people that just don't like hip hop, so they're never gonna bump the song just on some. I don't like that.
It doesn't sound pleasing to my ear. I don't like somebody but they can read this and they can say, wow, this is powerful. And you can tell a powerful story. This one is actually a little more about it's a little more political, and most of them are more like crime noir stories.
Right.
This one is, but there's another one that has to do with maybe gun control kind of that could be political also, this one is the most kind of in that world, but they all kind of the commonality in every single one is they all have a twist ending, and that's my shit. And I want genuine surprise, shock, good like twist ending that really hits you, and that's what I'm trying to achieve. The crime noir twist ending story told in a rap/comic, and to a level that feels like a Tarantino movie. Right. You know what I mean? And so that's what I'm going for. And not to pat myself on the back, but I feel like it took me a long time to get there, but I achieved that aesthetic in my writing, but it took me a hell of a long time. So I had a song on the Diesel, which has the very first tale from the third rail that I consider of my stories in that vein of these kind of, and I thought I couldn't do it. I had a few of these have 4 verses because it's hard to squeeze it.
Right.
I'm trying to squeeze this into 3
with a descriptive story, you're gonna.
How can you? That was my biggest problem. how can I tell?
16s are going to be pretty confining.
Right. 16 bars, 2 or 3 of those.
I'd probably just go with 232s.
Right.
Call it a day.
Right.
I mean, when you look at a lot of the, best storytelling that has happened across history, a lot of it doesn't follow a verse format. And there's a lot of warning from Biggie. Right? Like,
the good storytellers have to be short. And I learned it. You know what I did? I read short stories by the illest short story author, who is fucking Roald Dahl. You know who that is? No. He's famous for writing
the Peach one,
James and the Giant Peach, the BFG, the Witches, all these kids books. He wrote children's books when he was in his 80s. When he was, up until then, he was a horror short story writer. So he wrote horror stories that were super brief. And sometimes they just be a page or 2 pages. But I see the paintbrush, the way you paint, it's like you give very specific details of your characters that allow you to know them.
Right.
No bogeys in here, bro.
No.
Oh, you got an L. Oh, you okay. Go ahead. It's all about the little details that let you know somebody quick. You give somebody 3 details. You could say, like, this guy smokes this cigarette, does this. Just what's the essence of that person, and how do you convey it just in one, by the shirt they're wearing. You know what I mean? But you have to say it. This guy's wearing the type of shirt, and he's the type of guy that doesn't give a fuck. You could tell by the way he wears the shirt. Can you? But you can't. There's some, you gotta find that thing for everybody.
Je ne sais quoi about the character.
Right. And so, if you learn to paint in that language, and it's funny because it's stuff that I noticed and I took in, and I just you just start writing the stories, and some of it is like, it's almost like freestyling. You're like, where the fuck did that come from? It's like I had it in me. I was trying to tell that, but it just kind of comes out sometimes once you try to practice it and aim for it. But that first one, it took me like a year or 2 to write it. I put it down. I was like, I'll never write. It's going to be an 8-minute song. I'm never going to. Not this one. This one
was the precursor song.
This is the precursor song. I have.
That was like the pilot, and this is like the real season.
This is the real season 1, right? Exactly. So there are on. So Media Shower actually has a couple that are meant for Tales for the Third Rail as well, and so there are a few of them have been released as songs already. So of that dozen, let's say 4 of them are out in the world already, but it doesn't matter. And so eventually I want to collect them and have all the issues as 2 trade paperbacks, 6 issue each, and I can do a year run on a comic, releasing every month. So I'm trying to connect. I got this artist in Italy that's very dope that I was recently building with. So if that goes through, and I'm able to get this next issue popping off by sometime in the middle of the year, if not sooner, I should have another issue, hopefully. So I just been doing a lot of music stuff. So I kind of like, because I'm like, I don't really have the popularity in either of these worlds to sell what I want to do and do what I want to do, especially with other people's money. So I'm like, let me bump up this. I have more of a rep in music. So I'm like, let me put out these few albums, be active, because I haven't been active in music. So last year, actually I was, and it feels good. And I got a lot of accolades and, played on people's shows that I hadn't been before. And, it's like I got the DJs playing it. It's like things are starting to come together a little bit. So put out a little more music that's just music, but
we'll figure it out. We'll be all right eventually. So where are you at now with it? Are you like, I'm planning on, do you have a plan for the next few years where okay, I'm gonna drop an album and a song that's got a book that goes with it? Or is it more like I
have them both the plans are both running concurrently for the comic and the music. The comic is a little, I mean, it's just so intense. The actual art is so intensive, but if you have somebody that's a pro, you know, you pay them their rate, but it's expensive to produce, rightfully so, as I just gave the whole rant about how intricate and I'm super picky. The thing is, I know a bunch of, I could have knocked this all out and had people I know that are close to me do it. But
you could also even go online with Fiverr and get some random guy
but
to just do illustrations for you.
Gotta
but
be
is it gonna be the illustrations that actually care about what you're doing and are they gonna make that panel that adds a layer to your story?
Right. You see, my man who did the first issue did it so good. The bar is so high. And so, you know, my only regret with this issue, it's funny, we had he didn't color it himself, but the animator who animated it colored all the art and then animated it. So we had a color version. But I, on my super OG, purist, Frank Miller, black and white comic kind of kick, I was like, I'm gonna do it all black and white except the last panel is in color. And I only put the last panel in color. So to produce these, I paid the same as a color comic. And to the average person off the street, they see black and white. It's less, it doesn't pop as much. I should have just put the color one out. You know, I like personally the black and white one more. That's why I put it out. Black and white. And just seeing the last panel in color, it's such a G move. Who does that? I gave you the whole comic in black and white and one color panel at the end. Right. But now I'm like, maybe I could have done a hybrid with like 2 or 3 color panels in there.
I mean, like the way you're describing it in like interview capacity, it sounds more like avant-garde or something. The way that you chose to do it, like with the colors, like
exactly. That is what I chose. I chose the avant-garde artsy way. That's not gonna sell as much or be as pop or be as gripping to the non-comic world people. Super comic-y people will appreciate a black and white, but even most comic fans like to read in color. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's
definitely. Because I do, you know, I'm not opposed to a black and white, but like I'm definitely gonna. It feels a little bit, but it depends also because there's all sorts of artists that pull off black and white that it's like, yo, it makes me feel like it should never be colored. Yeah, it's a different. It's a complete thing on its own. But it's its own. But it's again what we're talking about, which is somebody giving the care to that, and the you know like. And anybody who gives the care to that is going to give that feeling off. You know? So I'm pretty sure that it you know came out really good. Everything that you were showing,
I'm gonna give you guys you guys could have
everything you were showing here was like it looked clean. It looked nice. So
I'm super proud of it. Oh my god! And my man Jason Shelowitz, who's an artist who does those rap quotes. You ever seen those? He designed the logo. Nice. Tales from the Third Rail. Nice. My man Tramp animated it. Tramp he had the first hip hop comic strip in the original Source back in the days. They used to run the Source. So, and he does all the merch for the Universal Hip Hop Museum now. Word. And he has his own. Actually, me and him, I also have this is his company, and he has a cartoon called Sure Shot. And for his company, we did this hip hop coloring book.
Yo,
which
that's super
I wrote
cool.
the rhyme, so it's like, and it's all hip hop stuff. So it's A is for all good, A is for all that, A is for the homie in the Applejack hat. You know what I mean?
Right.
Boom. And then it's just like, hey, we take you through each letter is like a hip hop, a hip hop coloring, like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
That is really
we got
amazing.
Word jumbles in the middle, puzzles. It's a whole thing for kids, man. And then in the back, we even got, I think there's like 3 or 4 books of stickers of the characters.
That's fucking nifty.
Yeah. So this is super lit, man.
Nah,
That's better than a lot of the coloring books I had as a kid.
Yep.
looking like
I
Slick
can't
Rick
believe
right
I wrote a children's book, with this
That's
rap.
super dope, man.
Oh yeah, bro. That is.
And that's not just like a regular fucking children's book.
These are
That's
big
like
flexes.
hella engaging, bro.
These are big flexes.
Like
Yeah.
you have said some extremely impressive things with a level of humility where I don't even think you're aware of how impressive you are.
Well, thank you, brother. I really appreciate it. Well, it's like all this is labor of love. You know what I mean? Like it's like I've been doing this so long, and like I said, I've been through ups and downs. I've been lucky enough to travel the world. I've been everywhere, from every state to Europe to South Africa. Off of people have paid me to go places and rap and come back, and I got a couple racks in my pocket from rapping, and that's a huge dream. Do I have what I really wanted to, or maybe not, and maybe I got depressed because it's like, but it's like it's all of that shit is aside, man. I do it out of because I love it, you know what I mean? And that's like, I'll do whatever for money, but I want to do what I love, and I'm gonna do it either way. And I'm an artistic person, and I always gotta have 10 artistic projects on the fire, and then some of them stoke for years, and then an opportunity.
Some simmer down,
and some simmer down and never happen. But I'm always chipping away, and
right.
so they're all in states
sometimes
of like
you gotta throw sometimes one simmers down, and you gotta throw a new log on.
Right, exactly. Very good metaphor. So that's the same way. So and then to see them come to fruition is just when you hold it in your hand, you're like, wow, I'm an author now. I'm a comic book. This is I put in a rhyme. This is. Most comics don't even go to the Library of Congress. I made sure my comic is in the Library of Congress. I have an ISBN number. So I'm an author listed in the Library of Congress. Not a goal I set I never accomplished. Like, it's like, it's real shit. It's like, but it all came from just loving it.
That's a huge flex. That's like, I'm an author, but not just one of them dudes publishing on Amazon by himself.
Right.
That's a huge flex.
Right.
Yeah. And shout out, I didn't even say the cover artist is my man Scam too, who he's famous from designing all the Eminem's tattoos and doing his music with him back in the day, but he's, an artist and MC in his own right, and, very talented dude, man. And, like he's not from the comic world. He fucking crushed it, bro. Like, you know what I mean? It
looks clean.
Yeah,
looks
super
beautiful.
clean, bro.
Looks beautiful.
It's great, man. And he even did fly shit. Like he took my other homie Nick's art, who did the interior art, and he put it in the reflections of the buildings. Just very slick. Like because I'm such a hyper kind of perfectionist with all my art. Like if I do something. Like from my first CD, people are like, wow, you did this? Like it looks, I'm like, yeah, that's, because I got sick of waiting for somebody to give me a deal, give me a handout, it's like, like when I was on the sidelines at Stimulated, and I make no mistake about it. I deserved to be on the sidelines at that point. I was undeveloped. Right. My man Ems, shout out to Ems, because he really sat me down. And he was like, and I was writing like, it's like I was writing 30-bar verses. He was like, bro, 16 or 12? Like, you know what I mean? Like, less is more. I'm not even going to let you record this.
Right.
And so we made some good songs. We made like a couple good songs, but it was what he taught me that I took on my own. It really just, and then I had to go through my own path of becoming better. But it was cool. It was a good experience. But I was like, they're not going to see my potential or want to give me some shit, And so I'm like, I don't want to be on the sidelines. I'm going to just do it myself. But if I do it myself, I want it to be as if this is the highest budget thing you've ever seen. It's got to be just pure art. It's got to, you can't, anything less takes you out of the experience.
Yeah, you got to listen.
Yeah.
It seems like we got running themes going here because that was what the conversation with our last guest was, and it's really just you gotta care, man. I was saying how like I was this morning watching a video of a guy cooking breakfast for like Waffle House or some shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he had like a GoPro probably like on his head. And shit.
Yeah.
And he was just recording himself. Yo, it was like probably like a 12-minute video of just him fucking. We're talking about eggs on a grill.
That's an
while,
art.
Like,
That's the most beautiful
all
art
these
there
all
is,
these
yeah.
different things cooking all at the same time.
Yeah.
And to make it,
Yo,
there's nothing that I love more than to watch a person who loves what they do what they do.
Yeah.
Period.
And
Across
then
the board.
especially when they explain what they care about in these little details.
Then you
that
can
would-
understand why they do what they do.
But also just like take cooking videos. Like I don't know half the reasons why people like you're supposed to do things, but you don't often think about why you do the things unless you're mad passionate about cooking. But like watching people on YouTube cook makes me more passionate about cooking.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's bleeds over. Somebody's passion excites you. That's like with any art. I think cooking is a art. It's funny because that's one of my side projects that I never did nothing with. That I almost shot what do you call it? It's not even a pilot for a reality show. It's 7 minutes. They call it
A short.
yeah, short or clip, whatever it is. The 7-minute teaser, But my homie who's like been a producer on like Wife Swap, and he does a lot of National Geographic shows. He's been doing reality TV for a long time, and I had a food show idea that I almost shot a pilot for, which was called Graffiti, and it's me being like I'm a huge like foodie pothead. I love to eat and I love fly food, and I'm a total novice. I do not cook nothing. I don't even cook eggs. I eat all my food out, right? So it was gonna be the focus of the show was me going into a fucking restaurant as an amateur, having the meal that I like, that's beautiful, explaining, kind of tripping off the art of food, because food is such a fucking ephemeral art. You know what I mean? It's served, it's hot on your plate. The first bite tastes different than the last bite tastes.
You're right.
You have like 3 good hot bites, and then the rest of them have cooled. Like it's it's just so crazy and fleeting, but all art is anyway. But it's just like, this is just the epitome of that, right? And functional, and it's like, so I want to build with it. Then I build with the chef about that, and the hook is at the end of the show, like I gotta help coach the chef to do like a painting or a piece of visual art or record a song, and he got to teach me how to make a dish.
Wow.
So that was like
I would watch the fuck out of that.
Yeah. And I also got another. My other thing is I eat everything. Like I don't believe in bad food, only bad chefs. So it's like if something exists as a food, I feel like somebody somewhere makes it good, and I'll eat it.
Yeah, nah, absolutely. Yeah. I feel you. I'm big time on like I have like New York food tours that I take people on.
Yeah.
Like specific geared ones. Like, we're doing Italian, we're doing a whole pizza tour, we're doing a whole Latin cuisine tour, whole Caribbean.
That's the blessing of New York City. You could go to mad countries, just like
mad countries,
right here, Astoria, bro. This block, go up 30th Avenue. In one block, you will have a fly restaurant from every region around the fucking world, and they're all bomb. It's like so much good food here, man. It's insane.
Nah, New York City is definitely like a foodie capital.
Yeah.
The restaurants and everything, it's all built and geared towards that. Yeah, man. Yo, I think that we caught up to modern day.
We're at the part where we're talking about restaurants.
Right. Now, I'm pretty sure we can keep on going for forever. But
let me plug what I'm currently working on.
Plug it.
So last year we put out the album Devils and Drugs.
Okay.
Which was on Man Bites Dog Records again. And that got a lot of traction, it was very cool. We got on it Swave Sever, who I mentioned before. We got Ito on it from Rochester, new crack era dude. We got my man Breeze Bruin from the Juggernauts, one of my personal favorite MCs, just such an ill writer and just rapper, kind of like an underground Nas. My man Napoleon, the legend, incredible MC. Also, my man AL, formerly AL Skills, one of the illest off top too. You know, just dancers, fucking OG of the culture in every sense. And you know, it's just we and that was our kind of movement last year. And I did some of the merch. Those are actually, you see over there, those are some pins that I hand drew.
Yeah,
for the
I'll grab.
Yeah.
I grabbed a little video
We'll add
of
that in.
this, and I'll grab some pictures of that.
So and now I'm working on this album with my man Jit Beats, who's an incredible, very trippy producer. He got like such a unique, authentic sound. It's very avant-garde, and just none of his beats are locked into a time grid. They're just kind of, but they're not overly. They're still funky and sound like good regular music, but a little, in the vein of maybe like a Dilla or something, but his own thing. It's not riding nobody else's wave, right? And so he's been around forever too, and he, we just got an incredible really 2 projects that we kind of banged out since the pandemic. I've been going to PF's crib once or twice a week, and we're just on it. So we've been recording over all these Jit beats, and they're incredible. So I'm starting to air those out now. We just dropped the video for On My Way and another one for this song called Sashimi that we shot in our homies Raw Like Sushi. They got a really dope sushi party, and it's kind of just like, it's a sushi speakeasy. So they got this fly kind of clientele.
I already know.
Yeah.
Come on. Speakeasies that's one of the ways that I win over people that I want to win over.
Right.
Let's go catch lunch,
Monday
and dinner, and then it's like, meet me here.
And they're like, oh my God, what is this?
Oh my God, what is this?
So you gotta come.
It's secret.
On a Monday night. Every Monday, pretty much. They take one or 2 off, but now they took a couple off already, so it's every Monday for the next foreseeable future. Right there on Avenue C. It's right above the spot called New Blue. And it's called Studio 151 because it's the address. But since it's speakeasy, there's nothing on the door. It's just a door. Walk upstairs, bar, all vinyl party, always a dope DJ in there. Little fucking bar. They have sushi. My man Kamui, the sushi chef, award-winning chef. He won like best sushi chef in the city or something like a year or 2 ago. Like, just very fire food. And it's always like little, like, it's always like a celeb popping in. Anderson .Paak is in there. I turn around. It's ASAP Mob be rolling up on them for sushi. Kate Moss is in there. Like, you're like, what the fuck? Like, this is just like a, it's like that type of like, and nobody cares. Yeah, it's New York. It's like a spot this big, and it's like somebody next to you, like, yeah, excuse me, let me get some sake, like, what I mean? And
I'd be very insistent on like,
who was in it?
My eel sashimi, you know
right?
What I mean? And I really wouldn't care, like, all right. That's nice that you guys are all here, but I'm here for my eel sashimi.
Exactly,
bro.
the sashimi.
You know like,
it's all about the sashimi.
Like, that's it.
We shooting the sashimi video in there. And then who was in there? G-Eazy was in there. He just popped up with somebody else. And he's in the background of the, while we're shooting a video for me. Like, it's like, what? Why? This is crazy. You know what I mean? Right. Like, but it's that type of spot. And it's crazy because I had this song called Sashimi, and they were asked, they're like, yo, you want to film? Because my man Yoshi, we've been fucking with each other for like 10, 15 years. These are all guys from Japan. Hip-hop guys from Japan that came over, been here forever, and they really good homies, and they good people, and they really into hip-hop and fashion and, all this shit that we're into.
Actually, back episodes, we talk about Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the theme. Like we were saying before, mostly we talk to, like, I would say, rappers that aren't necessarily as actively pursuing visual arts.
Right.
But when you talk to the visual arts guys, holy shit, does it unlock a whole bunch of different perspectives, right? Like, I'm not a visual artist. I, like, understand design principles.
I've done projects. I've done projects. I can empathize with everything that you said this entire time.
I can follow it.
You know what I mean? Like, I understand.
But I feel like your passion.
We're kindred spirits in the visual. I did my first album was Adventures of Super Spick, and it was themed around like a comic book, and there's songs dedicated.
There you
You
go.
know what I mean?
So you're in the
Specifically
same
to-
world. You
I
say, yeah, we all-
understand fully what it is to have this baby in your head
Right.
that you want to, you know what I mean? And like also like even more recently, like the volume 1 of the Littyyy Bros was like, yo, I wanted to make sure that each song had a visual. You know what I mean? And like that it spoke to what the overall like encompassing vision and the story is gonna be.
Right.
And
We're
it's just
visual
like
creatures. People absorb things visually
yeah,
more
and
than
as
that.
artists, there's a lot, you know, that like goes into it. So yeah, I can empathize with all of it and
I
every
totally
single
like appreciate
sentiment.
it, but like your passion for it, like my best friend writes comics and stuff. Like he just drew his first one and like like not published, but like online
He put
published.
it out, yeah.
And like it took him like 15 years. I watched him do this for 15 years to get to the point where he self-drew his first comic.
Right.
Like,
Well, my man who did this, he did it his own graphic novel first, and the same thing. It took him like maybe not 15, but it definitely took him the better part of a decade, probably. Like he was conceptualizing, getting his art to the level, and now he's like, oh, that's trash. Like he just put out a new one that's way better, but like it's like you're always gonna get better and think your old shit is trash. His first one is
that's
crazy
how we are as
too.
artists.
But it's like your passion for it though. Like listening to y'all, like even listening to you talk about the Marvel Unlimited app makes me go, you know, maybe I'll peep that for a hot minute, see what I think about some Marvel comics.
Yeah,
because I don't know the last time I actually did that. I don't even know if I like comics. Like, I'm not necessarily into the superhero movies, but I might like comics.
Right. Yo,
no
comics
one really
are
talks
some of
about it like that.
Some of the most bizarre like fiction that I've ever read is in comics, and some of the most thoughtful, crazy. There's like this guy Warren Ellis. You know who that is?
Warren Ellis.
Oh my God, read Warren Ellis. He's a comic writer that. He flipped like he did comic he did Moon Knight for a while. But he's more known for his other bugged out shit. So he did this shit called Transmetropolitan, which is about like a future journalist. It's basically like the Hunter S. Thompson of the future. And it's just super bizarre and just crazy, but it's all he knows a lot about technology and space travel. And there's another one called Planetary where it's like some, I don't even know. It's like interdimensional X-Files, if I want to like
kind of put a label to it.
It's so bizarre, but it's so intelligent. It's like I'll tell you one of his best ones. This was one that was he wrote in the Bush era, and it's called Black Summer. And it's so dope because it's basically superheroes murdering Bush. I mean, they never say it's Bush, but it's clearly President Bush while he was the president. And so it's like in this world, the only superheroes are the Seven, and they're just all like kind of like robot. They've done enhancements to make themselves ill, and they were supposed to fight corruption in cities where law enforcement can't do it. But mysteriously on 9/11, the president sends them out of the country. They really only stay in the country. They get sent to like France on 9/11, and then 9/11 happens, and then they find out that the president and the White House had inside knowledge of 9/11. And so the comic starts, the main dude is called John Horace, and he's the most invincible one because his power is a bunch of cybernetic eyeballs that float around him, but they do everything for him. They make him fly, they can attack, they like make him invincible. And so he comes out, they're waiting for the president to come out from a press briefing, and then he just comes out with his white suit like soaked in blood. He's like, ladies and gentlemen, it's come to my, they're like, it's John Horace, but what is he doing? They're supposed to be in Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, it's come to my attention that the president was involved in the planning of 9/11. He's like, I'm sorry I had to murder him right now, but he had blood on his hands. My only regret is I had to kill a bunch of Secret Service people too. But you will have to have free elections now on pen and paper, and don't fuck with me because I'll be back in night too. And so then it's like, and then the whole comic is they've been retired at this point, so it's like all the old crew has to come back and to take him out because they're like, he's wilding, you know what I mean? Yeah. But nobody's as powerful as him, so it's like from there. But it's like the whole shit, the satirical angle of
Right.
just like he comes out having murdered Bush. It's just like, and in that era, it was like reading it, I was like, oh shit, how they do this? Like, you wouldn't see that in no fiction anywhere. Like,
No. Definitely not back then either.
yeah,
Things were a lot more buttoned up.
right.
Nah, but I hear what you're saying. You have, like I said, y'all talking about it this passionately makes me go, what the? It's the FOMO shit. Like, what am I missing?
Right.
I don't
There's
even
stuff. There's stuff to read that's not super. Like I don't even. Like I said, I don't focus on superhero. It's rare for me to read a suit. I'll do it as a throwback or there's certain superhero. I check for the writer more. So some of the writers do write superhero shit too. But I like a good writer will write a good story, and that's period. You know.
Nah, fair enough. And I appreciate your insight, man. I think this was a great conversation, and we
Thank you guys.
covered a lot of stuff.
Thank you so much for giving us your time. We
Yeah.
appreciate it so much.
And you taught us a lot about your perspectives on life, and it was super interesting.
Yeah.
What's your website where people can go and get the comic and support you?
DoubleAB.com. It's very easy. DOUBLEAB.com.
And it'll be linked below, but that was for the audio people.
Yeah.
But yeah, just you can check it there. You can peep the whole comic as a PDF. It downloads. It's pretty easy to access. The music's there, and it's a good pipeline to get to the rest of his information. And follow the man.
Yep. Hit me up.
And like, I'm really happy with this. I think I learned a lot.
Yo, this was incredible. Again, thank you so much for giving us the time.
Very in depth. This was like a fucking another another level of interview than I typically do. So it's it's dope.
Thank
it's
you.
very, very
I'm glad.
You're actually what you're doing is building and getting the essence of a human, like
Trying to get your perspective.
Yeah. Awesome.
And this is like the shit that I wanna, that's what I wanna do. We need our stories told. You know what I'm saying? I think that, right, like that feeling that you might have had is like from also maybe a lack of appreciation. And it's like, there can be more appreciation. It's just, we create the world that we want.
Right.
You know what I mean?
If you think about that movie pitch idea, bro, you were talking about some super action movie shots. You pressed against the wall with trains coming like this.
Right.
Like you were
There's
dropping
scenes in
some
the movie,
compelling shit. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I got death-defying stories after that too, so that's on part 2.
Yeah. So thank y'all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys. Hell yeah. So
thank y'all.
Thank you to everybody
watching
on the internet
us in the
who's watching
future
it in
and
the
whatnot.
future.
We're used to doing this live. This is my future. I'll stop saying that soon. But make sure to like, subscribe, comment. All that stuff's help. And if y'all want to support a little fiscally, patreon.com/perspective, spelled like the channel below, PRSPCTVS. Yes, that's how it's spelled. I don't know what's there yet, but by the time this is live, you'll see perks and stuff. So we would appreciate you. Or something. Subscribe. Anyway, typical Patreon stuff that will be defined in the future. And we appreciate y'all for real. And it means the world that y'all come through, watch, and like engage with us. And it makes it like a bigger experience. So thank you for that.
Right.
And on that note, it was a great time. Live long and prosper, everyone.